SandCity Sports. Let's get it going. Let's get it going. Hope everybody is doing well. Happy Easter, everyone out there that celebrates Easter. Um, so hope you had a good day. Yes, indeed. I celebrate Easter, so I just want to extend, the love, joy, peace, hope, all of those things that go with Easter Sunday. We'll discuss more. Uh, but I hope you had a good day overall, and let's get it rocking. All right, IG is good. Yes, indeed. We're going to talk about the women's and the men's NCAA championships, along with what's going on in the NBA. All right, the Facebook is good. See, what we doing? IG, excuse me, IG is good. Facebook is good. It's Twitter. X marks the spot, not for me. It's Twitter as far as I'm concerned. That's looking good. Let's go ahead and make sure YouTube is where it needs to be. All right, all right. And last but not least, let's get over to the Discord. Land of Twitch. Twitch is good as well. This against all, you know what I mean? I said, Houston, we are cleared for takeoff. Yes, indeed, we are. Let's get our levels right. Let's make sure our volume is right as we get ready to set sail on another episode of SandCity Sports. Big day. Women's championship. We got to dive into it. We got to dive into it. Men's championship on the rise, on the horizon tomorrow. Once again, a happy Easter Sunday. Hope everybody had a good day, blessed day. Okay, so very much, very much to discuss. But let's go ahead. Let's blast off. Let's blast off. Hey, SandCity, to the business. I am your host, Cape Cod Kid, artist formerly known as Andre King. Thank you so much for tuning in. Come on, run that back. And again, I'm not sure why I need my intro. I need my intro on the bigger screen. I don't know why. You know what I mean? I might have to come here. That's what we're going to do now. This is how we're going to do our intro. This is how we're going to do the intro. Let's go ahead. Hey, what it is? SandCity. Go! Women's Basketball National Championship. It was one-sided. Shout out to U.C.L.A. First daddy. Much respect to SandCity. Go! Yes, indeed. Hold on. Let me just hold on. Let me get. How you doing?
Hello, where you at?
Good. Happy Easter. I'm doing my pod. I will get back to you. Hello, happy Easter, everybody. Okay, happy Easter. I'm on the pod. I'll get back to you. Okay, bye-bye now. I had to reach out Easter. You know what I mean? Had to reach out to the fam right quick. Let me get back. Let's get back in the groove. Let's get back into the groove. But there's only one place that we could begin. A little quick, you know what I mean? It's always I thought I muted the mic. I believe I did, but might have been a little, the happy Easter going out to the you know out on the pod. I got no problem with that. I gotta make time. Um, but let's dive right into. We're gonna go ahead and play the hits and get right into the natty. And it's already lined up. Beautiful thing. Okay, folks. Um, again, my one of my screens as I go. I don't know why this is not. You know, I'm over here, but really can I switch it? I don't know why my imagery is not over here where it's supposed to be. Um, you know what I mean? So then I go here as we have the imagery over there. Again, you know what I mean? We work through these technical things to make the most. Um, all right. So fundamentally, to begin with, the hoopers out there, you know what this is. Basketball players, right? The gentlemen, we love and respect and uplift the women's game. That's where I always start with this. Okay. And so it is an event, it's a spectacle. Um, it is up there, okay, with our men's championship again, which will be tomorrow, Michigan and Connecticut. We shall discuss. Um, but Tupac said, "All eyes on me." When it comes to the women's championships, whether it be NCAA, whether it be the WNBA finals, you know what I mean. It's just the basketball world is locked in you know wanting to see um, that elite basketball, and dare I say, right? We are occasionally blessed with greatness. It's not every year, but occasionally we are blessed with greatness. But the attention is most certainly there. All right. So always want to lead with that. Women's game is tremendous. The artistry, the execution, on and on. It's a beautiful thing. All right. So now that we've established that, this championship game, all right, and we're going to give our flowers and respect to the UCLA Bruins, okay? Last time they were in the winner's circle, we're talking late 70s, folks. Late 70s, right? NCAA women's basketball was not in existence. Okay, we're going back to the days leading up to the Cheryl Millers of the world. Yes, indeed, I said leading up to the Medina Dixons of the world, pride of Boston, Massachusetts. Yes, indeed, Medina Dixon, National Player of the Year out of Cambridge Ringen Latin. The same year as the one Mr. Patrick Ewing. Go ahead and look that up. Yeah, we love and respect and appreciate our greats. Okay, so when we lifting up the Medina Dixons of the world, when we lifting up the Cheryl Millers of the world, the Dawn Staleys of the world, the Kim Mulkeys of the world, okay, those that paved the way for what we have now in the NCAA and as well as the WNBA, okay, we have to go back to that history. Okay, UCLA has not won a national championship in the quote unquote common modern, however you want to put it, era. So that is significant, historic. All right. And they did so in resounding fashion, which I have to, I'm going to unpack in a number of ways. Of course, you guys out there in television land are more than welcome to jump in. But this was a one-sided affair. Okay, appreciate it is getting up there. I appreciate my family. I see you checking in on IG. I appreciate everybody that takes time to check in with SandCity Sports. I appreciate how you doing. Let me know what you think. But let's get back to okay. This was a dominant performance, right? And myself, I don't know about you guys out there in television. I had this going the other way. Okay. South Carolina Gamecocks, this is their third straight natty. You understand? We're going to discuss what happened on Friday. Oh, yes, we will. In terms of a very close game, UCLA usurping Texas in a dogfight, a junkyard brawl, right? 51-47, that game, okay? Nip and tuck down the stretch, and then they give themselves a little bit of distance. But after what South Carolina did to UConn, the overall number one seed, winners of 38 straight games, then you add what they did last year, and a team that put it on them last year in the Natty. Oh, yes, they did. All right? We had a changing of the guard that we saw last year when South Carolina was going for back-to-back Natties. And find themselves in a matchup against the UConn Huskies, who had, right? It had been a little while for they raised a banner in stores. Okay, but last year with Paige Beckers and Azzy Fudd Healthing and the young post player Strong, I believe I'm getting that name right. Correct me if I'm wrong. For the Huskies, they were not to be denied. This is last year, and they took that momentum right into this year. Azzy Fudd coming back, Paige Beckers taking her talents to the WNBA, and UConn, undefeated, number one overall seed, was looking, dare I say, invincible. If not invincible, we don't want to throw that out there, okay? But formidable, all right? And they were usurped by the South Carolina Gamecocks. We are going to dive into that very much so. But I just want to make it clear, going into this bout, you guys can let it be known, but the Cape Cod Kid had this game going to the Gamecocks of South Carolina. I did. No disrespect to UCLA. They was in the Final Four last year. They've been building. They're not new to this. They have a dominant All-American in bet, so you can see right there. Okay? No slight shade, snark on them. But after that performance by South Carolina against UConn, the odds-on favorite to win the whole thing, I mean, I'm leaning South Carolina. Okay, so now let's give some credit where credit is due. Let's give some credit where credit is due, and we're gonna move around a little bit here, folks. So, but that's the genesis, if you will. Coming into this matchup, for all the marbles, 2 number 1 seeds, tried and true. They've been doing this last couple years. South Carolina, 3 straight natties. UCLA, back-to-back Final Fours. All right? And again, when I'm thinking about Cali basketball, on the women's side, Juju on that beat. Juju on that beat. Okay, and Juju's injured. Okay, coming off, but doggone, I'm thinking about Juju on that beat at the University of Southern California. Excuse me. So UCLA has been handling business these last couple of years, but in the national conversation, they've been doing this a little bit on the periphery because of the transcendent players right there in the same city of Los Angeles. Again, Juju. I was gonna say Juju Smith-Schuster. No. And now let me get my Juju Watkins. Let me get. And Juju battled Juju played well last year against UConn in the Final Four. You know what I mean? He's serving notice. Played a. Hold on. No, Juju got hurt. I don't know if we got that matchup. Yes. I remember one battle that Juju had in the Final Four, and then the injury might have taken her out. Got to get that lined up. But nevertheless, I got to iron some things out. Make sure my takes are crisp. But we were privileged with this matchup. But I'm making it clear, all due respect to the Bruins, all right? I was Team South Kakalaki going into this game, all right? So as I get into my next take, let me just, again, and I'm going to, this is everybody, I have to express how I express, you know, that's the way it is. But we given all just due respect and appreciation and congratulations to the UCLA Bruins, national champions. We discussed the history. They handled their business, and I'm going to unpack that. But I'm going to take the route again that I'm taking, and you'll see we're going to come along for this little bit of journey. All right. So we give respect to UCLA, but now I have to kind of break down how all of this went down. Okay. How did all of this go down? Right? How did this go down, folks? What we saw today. All right. A dominant double-digit shellacking by the UCLA Bruins of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Okay. Why is Iron Mike Tyson on the screen, folks? He's on the screen for a very important reason. Shout out to Diet Pepsi, the old school Diet Pepsi logo, right? You know, in the background as we look at Iron Mike in his prime of the mid and late 80s. Okay, talk about invincibility, talk about unstoppable, right? Herculean strength. That was Iron Mike in those days. No two ways about it. One of the things that Mike Tyson says that just rings true to this day. Okay? Number of things, but Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Everybody has a plan until they get bopped in the mouth. And then the real battle begins. The real contest begins. All right? All right. After you receive that first power punch, that's when the ball game begins. Not before, after. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And the UCLA Bruins in this game, from the initial play, were connecting with and on the South Carolina Gamecocks. Go back to it. First play of the game, they, when the tip come down, the guard from UCLA does this round robin action. She goes baseline and then loops around, right? Free throw line extended in the paint, like she's running circles, right? Goes baseline, loops back around in the paint, okay? And then throws a hook pass, right? Up and over to the big, Betts for the layup. I'm like, It's like, that's right? I know a thing or two about basketball. Like, that's a pretty nice action right there. Okay? You keep your dribble. That defender's obviously trailing you, doesn't want to, got to stay between you and the basket. You take that defender out. Now your high post extended. And you're keeping your dribble. Obviously, now you've collapsed the defense. You're at the epicenter of the defense. Now, free throw line extended. You have to be respected. Okay? And then you use the ball pressure that's now attending to you because you have collapsed the defense. And they throw the hook over the top pass. Big gets it, establishes, gathers, up fake, up, boom, drops it right in. Okay? Point of fact is, UCLA was in a groove from Jump Street. Make it clear, I got much love and respect for the women's game. This has been established. Okay. But I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I'm not watching all of these women's regular season games, start to finish. I will check the marquee matchups. Yes, I saw that UCLA was top of the rankings throughout the year. Only lost one game. So they number 1, number 2 all year. I saw that South Carolina had 3 losses on the year, which is a lot for the top women's programs. The cream of the crop in the women's game, right, they generally lose at most 2. 3 is a lot. 4, that's a lot of losses for the best teams in women's basketball. So I'm seeing South Carolina, who's going to play everybody, right? The best are going to play the best. They took some L's in those strength versus strength competitions. All right, when they're playing the UConns of the world, when they're playing, the Texas of the world, these other top teams, Duke, etc. South Carolina, they took some L's, which is why I didn't have them favored against UConn, keeping it a buck. And we're going to talk about how I feel about Coach Dawn Staley. We're going to get into that. Okay, much respect for Coach Dawn Staley. We're going to talk about that. But what I'm saying right now is, in watching this game, it was eerily familiar with the 2023 Final Four matchup of the South Carolina Gamecocks against a team that you might remember, the Hawkeyes of Iowa, with a player who you know full well. Miss Caitlin Clark. CC, we like that. The Cape Cod kid coming from the Cape, the Cape and Islands, Cape Cod, double C. All right. That other CC, that Caitlin Clark. Oh, yeah. Reminded me of that matchup. Now, again, that was a Final Four matchup. This is a natty. But You may have forgotten out there in television land, folks, okay, that South Carolina team, led by Aaliyah Boston, the pride of Worcester Academy here in the Commonwealth, Aaliyah Boston, right, of the greater Boston area here in the Commonwealth, very proud. That South Carolina team in 2023, Aaliyah Boston, Player of the Year, was the overwhelming favorite against the Iowa Hawkeyes, led by Caitlin Clark. She was an afterthought, yes, in that game. Let's go ahead and pull out those receipts. South Carolina was supposed to manhandle Iowa that year. Okay, leading up to a marquee matchup of two powerhouse Southern schools, SC, the South Carolina Gamecocks, and the LSU Tigers under the KO leadership of Kim Mulkey. That was the matchup people were expecting that year. Go ahead and check the receipts. Go ahead. So the whole Caitlin Clark phenomenon, which is great for women's basketball, it's great for basketball overall. Okay. But it may not have been what it is, taking the trajectory it's taken. Now, we know Caitlin came back her junior year and handled business. We also know they got a questionable call that year, 2024, against UConn in the semifinals, where UConn, with a ton of injuries, gave them all they could handle. That wasn't no offensive foul that they called in that UConn game. Craziness. Yes, craziness. UConn gave them a run for their money with numerous injuries in 2024. Before they would eventually lose to the South Carolina Gamecocks in a rematch. The next year, UConn back healthy with Azzy Fudd, with Paige Beckers, who, by the way, is the reason that Caitlin Clark landed in Iowa, because Paige Beckers was there. And another wrinkle that we can discuss is the whole Caitlin Clark phenomenon, which is wonderful for women's basketball. Had Paige Beckers not gotten injured in the first place, because we know that when they was freshmen together, who was all the bright lights on? Okay? All of the lights, right? Go ahead, play. Who? Yeah, right? The lights was on Paige Beckers there, not her, their freshman year. Yes, Caitlin Clark was putting up numbers at Iowa, but that was on the periphery when Paige Beckers was taking the UConn Huskies to the national championship game. In an eventual loss against, I believe that was LSU again. Okay? Beckers is out her sophomore year. Caitlin Clark is doing her thing. But we didn't know who she was, and we wouldn't have known who she was had they not come out in the first quarter and thrown power punches. They befuddled South Carolina, undefeated South Carolina, Player of the Year, Aaliyah Boston, South Carolina, overwhelming favorite, South Carolina. The Iowa Hawkeyes came out in the first quarter, first half, running offense, not intimidated, raining down threes, driving and kicking, daring South Carolina to shoot, doubling up Aaliyah Boston in the post, loading up on the post. Perimeter players, shoot all the shots you want. That's what we want you to do. We're daring you to shoot. We know you want to go inside out. We know you've been dominant with that all year. We're going to make you do something different. And South Carolina had problems, difficulties with that curveball. Yes, they did. And then people wanted to, they was like, who the heck is this Iowa Hawkeyes team? Who the heck is this Caitlin Clark with all of this skill and attitude? That took people some time to get adjusted to. It shouldn't have, because she'd been hooping from way back when. She'd been her for a long time. Folks that follow women's basketball, Yeah, Caitlin Clark had been putting up numbers, had the confidence, had the moxie. But it took us, I don't know about us, but, then the whole Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese type of thing, and they went back and forth, which is no problem. That's fine. But some of that, I think, was It took people by surprise, right? Caitlin Clark said, "Go ahead and shoot that three. I ain't guard. Go shoot that three. I don't have to guard. Get out of here." Like, oh, yeah. That's double C. That Caitlin Clark. Yeah. She's giving you a little attitude, a little swagger. All right, I'm all for it. Caitlin Clark has a right to have individuality, unique style as anybody else. Yeah. But it took us a little while to get used to it because I thought South Carolina. No. They came out and landed power punches early. Okay? And that got South Carolina on their heels. This is 2023 I'm talking about. Now let's come all the way out back to 2026. All right? For me, a similar circumstance. I had South Carolina. I don't know about you guys out there in television land. I was hook, line, and sinker on the Gamecocks. Just check to see how everyone out there is doing in television land. Okay, everything is good. All right. Okay. So, yes, that's why we have Iron Mike on the screen watching this game. And UCLA, they and let's also, well, no. We're gonna keep it. We're gonna because there was a little bit of momentum. They hit a three off the doggone backboard. UCLA hit a three off the doggone backboard, man. I mean, so they were just hot, which, hey, is a perfect game. You want to save your best for last. You want to save your best for last. But it wasn't just a three off the back, but they were getting offensive rebounds and they were just running actions to scheme open shots and knocking down those open shots. From the first play of the game, UCLA then goes up 11-4, right? To say, oh, well, South Carolina was down 11-4 to UConn. Yes, they were down 11-4 to UConn. But then that game went in a very, very different direction. So to begin with this game, I give credit to UCLA 100%. But I have to say, right, with all due respect, appreciation, Dawn Staley, South Carolina Gamecocks. Okay. In big spots, they do not land the first power punch. And then they get behind, and then they have to play from behind, and it can become, today it certainly was, a slippery slope because of the slow starts. All right? Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. UCLA, underdog in some people's minds, myself, maybe others, they came out like the overwhelming favorite and landed power punches. Power punches. Okay? And that set the table. That set the table for a number of things. Let us continue discussing. Not done by a long shot. Let's stay with the Bruins. We're going to stay with okay. Gabriella Vasquez, right? Uh, her brother was in the building. Also a UCLA Bruin. All right. And a Miami Heato. Um, but Gabriella was out there. She was playing that the UCLA Bruins basketball. And woo! You can see these two siblings. Jaime, love his game. Love his game coming from the UCLA Mick Cronin tradition. He's going to do what needs to be done. You need me to shoot it, I can shoot it. You need me to pass it, I can pass. You need me to drive it, I can drive. You need defense, I can do it. You need rebounds, I can. I mean, he's just, as they say, a Swiss Army knife. And his sister, Gabriella, has that same mindset, has that same game. Okay? They was out there, as they say, getting active, getting to it. Steals, runouts, rebounds, deflections. Okay? Let's stay in the first half, folks. We're still in the first half. I mean, again, South Carolina goes down 11-4. You're like, okay, right? You know, they was down this much to UConn, right? But here's where we diverge on this. And as I'm watching this, I start. This is where the concern. Yes, obviously you're down 11-4, and okay, you know, but no, Dawn Staley, calm on the sidelines, calm. You know, not, which she should be stoic. Right? She's just okay. We're gonna let the team handle this, figure it out, kind of so on and forth. I get all that, but first half, that 11-4 deficit for the Gamecocks, right? They never ate, right? UCLA just kept they kept moving more and more, right? It didn't go from 7-4 to 2. It went from 7-9 to 11 to 13. South Carolina's down 13 at the half. Yes, that shot was after the buzzer. No good. You're down 13 at the half. And for me, I did not see South Carolina get into any kind of a rhythm offensively. That is the second thing that jumped out. That's the second thing that jumped out. Number one that jumped out at me as I'm watching this. This is a South Carolina team that held UConn to 48 points for the game. 12 points, no more, for the number one team in the nation per quarter. You get no more than 12 points a quarter. They locked UConn down. They won that game on the defensive end. So I'm saying to myself, how in the world does UCLA have 36 points at the half? What are we doing here? What are we talking about? Which begs the question for me. We're going to give UCLA some credit because they was out there unfazed, executing in the highest leverage moments. They were in a groove. We're going to dive into that a little bit more. Out there getting active, disrupting what South Carolina was trying to do, holding them to one shot per possession. They were imposing their will on this team that just usurped the number one team in the nation. You beat the best. I'm looking at you like you're the best. UCLA is out here, just this is a regular game. You haven't heard about, you might not have known that this is how we do things, but they're just out there, boop, boop, just executing offense. So credit to UCLA. But on the other side of it, offensively, South Carolina never got into gear. First half, second half. Right? And while we're on this subject, they miss wide open layups to start the game. Point blank layups. Edwards was short on a runner, but before that, they had a point blank layup. Girl got the rebound and just blew a layup. First quarter, they missed 3 bunnies. Okay? So that's nerves. Okay. I understand. We talked about it. You had a plan till you get punched in the mouth. I'm a guy, way out here in television land. There's nothing like being in the arena. Get all that. But as a tried and true champion, which is South Carolina, that kind of spoke to me. It did. All right? They were jittery. And then on top of that, never mind just having nerves and okay, you got to work, but they weren't running offense. A lot of just flat jump shots. Right? I'm not seeing, they weren't hitting open shots, but their shots didn't necessarily seem to be in a rhythm. A drive, a kick, okay? A secondary attack, another kick. Right? Didn't get into gear. Okay? And on the other side of this, UCLA snowball effect. They come out obviously nervous, see the ball go in the basket. Okay, see it go. They're just getting more and more confidence. Right? And in these single elimination types of games, the one crowd is going crazy, the other crowd is silent. Okay, that silence on your bench and amongst your faithful can start to become deafening and start to weigh on you and have a domino effect, which ended up being the case. Okay? So UCLA coming out calm, confident, and then executing. So credit there. By the way, Betts, she whatever it was, having difficulty breathing, had to have the inhaler on the sidelines. Their best player didn't play a majority of the first half. This is happening when their best overall player is on the sidelines. That dominant post figure. So that's an opportunity for South Carolina on their side to get active. You got a power play situation. Excuse me. and we didn't see it materialize. So we're giving credit here to the victor goes the spoils here. But what I'm saying, what I'm trying to deconstruct here is how does South Carolina hold UConn to 48 points for the game and allow UCLA, who's just comes off of a barnyard brawl with Texas, 51-47. How does UCLA score 36 points in the first half? For Team South Carolina, you're supposed to be elite, but you just led with defense. That was your calling card against the Huskies. And defensively, that high ground was conceded early. Now, yes, Dawn switched it up, went to zone, right? Second quarter, kind of throw off their rhythm a bit, did get some stops. Weren't able to convert those stops into points to chip away at the lead, right? Because the double-digit lead remained going into the half. But I can see, throw the zone in there. All right. See that on the men's side, at times teams will throw a zone in to disrupt. Shire, Duke use that. Hurley will throw some zone in there. Just get them off balance. All right. So, and again, we're going to get to the second half in a second here, in a minute. But UCLA, they started fast and they stayed fast. They were, another thing that I like, shout out, a lot of seniors on both sides. Okay, staying with the same program. You got some transfers in there. Nothing wrong with transferring, but teams, that are staying, that are with, right? So you can see that, all right, you're not going to play, 4 years, for 3 different schools and bouncing, you right? But for the UCLA contingent, you saw the connectivity, the togetherness, the enthusiasm, the confidence of having been together through the highs and lows, the thick and thin. Okay? So they were not surprised with the results. I might have been surprised. Some of the other folks in television land might have been, but they weren't surprised. They we've been doing this. And by the way, okay, it was similar last year with UConn, Azzy, Page, the vets, Strong, the Utes on that team, right? That they had been, they had climbed a good height to get back to the national championship game, into that spot. And so they weren't gonna, right? There had been some long, cold, lonely nights when they was injured or when they was out of commission. All right. And you saw that with UCLA, right? The tough times that they had when they got things rolling, they wasn't going to look back. They wasn't going to look back. No, sirree. Okay. Yeah, we're not done by a long shot. In general, I hope everybody out there in television land is doing good. Everybody is having a good evening, and mi casa, su casa. You're always welcome. You're always welcome. To tune in. Let me know what you think. Good, bad, indifferent. We share community here on SandCity Sports. Know what you think. But we're gonna give We gotta give UCLA the flowers that they've earned. Before I can share my screen, I gotta get my right graphic. Right? Before we can share the screen, I have to get my right graphic. All right, we're ready to share right now. We're ready to share. Come on now. Right? You should be the screen. I don't know why it's doing this, but right? Should be able to see it, but okay, folks. Right. So we know a tale of two cities, right? It's a tale of two cities. Okay. Let me just try before I get in, right? See, it shouldn't switch. I don't know. Not sure why this might upgrade, right? I should be over here, and this should be in the main screen. I shouldn't be. Let's see. I don't know. Come here. All right. So there's some technical difficulties. Thank you for your. All right, folks. We're talking about a 13-point lead at the half for UCLA. Right? In a groove. Okay. Things are trending in the right direction. That's all kind of euphemism. Right? Essentially, they're executing their game plan is the point. U.C.L.A. Bruins were executing their game plan at the midway point. How does a 13-point lead go to a 30-point lead going into the fourth quarter? This is beyond execution. This team was locked in. You're up 30 in the Natty against a team that's been to 3 straight national championship games. You're up 30 at going. This move that they put on South Carolina in the third quarter, that 17-point swing, which again, when you got a team down, you have to put them away. That 17-point swing from 13 to 30 could have been a 17-point swing the other way from up 13 to down 4. And now we have a completely different ball game. Yes, UCLA could have still won a dogfight. They could have still won a game down to the wire. Recover, right? They make their move, you make your move in the fourth quarter, okay, and you can edge them out and sprint to the fifth. Right? We've seen this, right? Right? The UConn men down 19 clawed their way all the way back to make it a dogfight, and then one of the most unusual plays in NCAA history took place. And one of the biggest shots in NCAA history took place to launch them into the Final Four and now into the marquee matchup against the Michigan Wolverines. We are in for a treat tomorrow. But folks, come on now. Up 13, Natty, and you turn that 13-point lead into a 30-point lead going into the fourth quarter. Put that game away. To do that in a national championship, that is the way that you handle teams, your fourth game of the regular season. Teaching your roster. Okay, I know that, it's regular season and we're winning games and that means nothing. It's not about the win, it's about learning. always learning how to win. Same thing when you're losing, okay? It's not about the loss. It's about taking lessons so that we can learn how to get back into the winner's circle, right? That's why we get the first round games that we have in the women's bracket that I love. Beating a team by 70 points, beating a team by 80, scoring 120. I love it. Yes. All right. Women's game is strong. There's not the top to bottom depth that is there in the men's game, but the women's game is very strong. But some of those first round 16 versus 1 match, yeah, we're going to beat you by 50, 60, 70. Yeah, feel that loss. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're going to score. It's not an embarrassment, but we're going to put it on you. Yes, get all of that. Harbor it. Because by the way, folks, that's how you get a UCLA. That's how you get a team that has nothing to lose and won't be denied when you take those absolute beatdowns. This is what I talk about on the youth level. It's great that you win games on the youth level and you get a t-shirt and you get a banner and you take all the pictures, okay? But are you staying hungry when you get those wins? Or do you feel some type of a way about yourself, like you've done something when you have done absolutely positively nothing? Zero, zilch, nothing. Much better a lot of times at the youth level that you take a 40-piece with the special sauce. And what? Take that loss. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grader. Take that 40-piece. Yeah, we did that to you. Yes. What are you going to do about it? That a lot of times will serve you far better than the front runner nonsense that we see so much in youth basketball. Take a beating and come back stronger. Dog on it. And this UCLA team over here wasn't impressed with no 13-point lead. They came out the hungrier team, scared of South Carolina, knowing what Dawn Stanley's capable of. And so we got to have our best quarter of the whole doggone NCAA tournament. And don't tell me nothing about no 13-point lead. I don't care about it. I don't care nothing about what happened in the first half. We coming out in this third quarter, okay, like some absolute furies. Hair on fire, gotta go get it. Okay? We coming out like we down 13, like we down 20. Backs against the wall, nothing to lose. We got to take every millisecond of this game and not let nothing go to waste. Team come out in the third quarter. I'm still flabbergasted. And put South Carolina away. They put a very good team. A very good team away. It's instructive in so many different capacities. But first off, have to say, folks, watching this game, just, oh man, it's a beautiful thing, man. Sports brings people different. It's a beautiful thing. Right? We come together, we share community, we have competition. Yeah, it boils over here and there. That's fine. All right. We learn from that, and it speaks to, right? Because when it boils over, right, that stuff that's under the surface that we feel something, but you know what I mean? Sometimes, hey, those truths come to light, and we have to deal with the deeper conversations and realities. It's hard, but it's good. Okay. Yeah. Folks, Corey Close out there coaching, coordinating. She's out there just signal their press break, their half court offense. She's out there. Man, putting UCLA in sets. They're out there running offense. Point, counterpoint, move, counterpoint. I mean, check. They just out there And what I'm trying to articulate is that level of preparedness, and execution that we saw third, fourth quarter. I mean, it was surgical. She she's just looking. Okay, this is what they're doing. This is what we're gonna do. The players receiving it, everybody locked in together. Hey, come over here, side screen. Yep. They were just running, beautiful, fluid, seamless, effective, efficient offense. This was some poetry in motion, folks, and it needs to be highlighted. Man, you know, um, one of the things that I borrowed a number of things, because you wanna have your role models, you wanna have people that you look up to and you appreciate. One of the things Coach K says, he says a lot of things, but he says that he talks about the will to prepare, right? The will to prepare. The games are easy. The games are easy, but do you have the will to prepare? Right? When you get under the bright lights and everyone's together, and right, that stuff can carry you in ways. When you're tired, you're sore, you don't want to do it. But when you get to the event and the arena and the community, that puts wind in your sails. That gives you a second life, new life, and you can now, okay, let's go. All right. But how about when you're in the room by yourself? Okay, at the office, almost everybody done left. How about those times? Hmm? Where's the energy, the enthusiasm, the motivation then? Huh? The will to prepare. Right? The games are easy. The will to prepare. And all the coaches, right? Final Four coaches have been there before. They're going to be back again. Gino, Dawn, Corey Close, coach at Texas, escapes but I've seen him in a number of these natties, Final Four situations, right? The will to prepare. I mean, and not, but UCLA, they were on a string. They were tied together. And I mean, was a final score like, they scored like 70, 80 points, something like that in the game, right? Against a UConn team that just held, against a South Carolina team that just held UConn to 48 points. And they just come off of a dogfight against Texas. How do you get your offense in gear, in a groove against a team, that just had this ensemble defensive performance? And you come out and put them on their heels. Running a scheme that produced actions that just had players wide open. And they were stepping in and knocking those shots down. We got to give credit and respect Corey Close, for being, talk about, understand, I don't understand, I overstand, as Denzel, and he got game. I mean, this preparation and game plan, execution, You know, it I mean, that's how you get the blowout. That's how you get a 28-point victory. You understand? Respect to Dawn, you know. Said I'm glad, I'm happy for quality people. Okay. In terms of how Coach Close, I don't know tremendous amount. No, she's been at it for 15 years before she steps into the winner's circle. By the way, how long for John Wooden before he got his first natty? 14 years for Coach Wood before Coach Wooden stepped into the winner's circle. Once he stepped in, he didn't. Man didn't step back out. He stepped on in. Yeah, he ain't step on out. So again, for me, just learning. Coach Staley says you're a quality person. I'm taking that to the bank. I'm gonna go ahead and take that to the bank. All right, and what I see in these, initial encounters, and again, every and every game is not going to be Villanova in '85. All right. Okay, this game certainly things aligned for UCLA, and they put their absolute best forward, put their absolute best foot forward in the biggest moment. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. All right. Um, and it was impressive. It was impressive. So hey, shout out to Coach Close. Um, these type of zenith moments that we get a chance to see from a distance, right? I'm just a guy out here in television land giving my takes, but these are people that's in the arena. These are the people that's in the arena doing the work, getting it done. The one shining moment. Um, and if Coach Staley can be happy for Coach Close, call her a quality person, I'm gonna be just as happy. Well deserved, earned. Um, National championship. Right? Tip my hat to you, Coach Close. Well done. Well done. Okay, folks. So we're gonna put a bow on it, and then we're gonna move over to the other side of the lane. We're gonna put a bow on it, and we're gonna move over to the other side of the aisle. We just getting started here, SandCity Sports. Hope everything is going well in your neck of the woods. SandCity Sports by for the fans. But the UCLA Bruins on the women's side are the national champions 2026. Resounding, dominant performance against a very good team. The South Carolina Gamecocks. Okay, senior led. Okay, these guys have been together. See the two sisters there, actually, the Bet sisters, right? Could have went to different programs and had maybe different opportunities. He said, "No, we're gonna do it for the land." Right? You got a couple that's SoCal people. Yeah, we want to stay home and do it for our community. They did it against the best of the best. Very talented Texas team in a game that went down to the wire. And then, hey, who was waiting for him in the natty? Dawn Staley and the South Carolina Gamecocks, their third straight natty. Okay, so you know, this. It was not going to be easy for the UCLA Bruins, not at all. But they came out really, from the opening tip. They just never looked back. Score close to 80 points. Hold South Carolina just over 50, 51 points. Adversity, your best player has to sit out, long portions of the first half. But they were quite at home. UCLA was quite at home on the biggest stage. Almost as though they, and we got some, two sisters there, and Gabriella, sister of Jaime, my man Jaime Vasquez of Miami Heat fame. So they were very comfortable under bright lights, and they most certainly shine very bright, capturing the 2026 national championship. Credit, respect, and a tip of the hat to the UCLA women's basketball team. Yes, indeed. Good stuff. Our national champions. Our national champions. Very good. All right, folks. We're not done discussing the women's game. We are not done by a long shot. Not done by a long shot. Let's head across the whole way to South Carolina. Let's head across the whole way, okay? Okay. South Carolina did not come out on top today. Right? There's only two things in sports. They say there's winning and there's misery. So it's very difficult. Okay. They have handled the loss with class, grace, giving credit to the UCLA Bruins program. Back-to-back years that they've made it to the national championship game and lost. Right? Very difficult. All right. And they're going to be back again, to capture those championships. All right. But, there's the program and then there's the person. And Dawn Staley is a very important person in the world of basketball. Okay, writ large. She's made no bones about being deeply committed to the women's game. All right, she's very clear about that. All right. But Dawn Staley is a very important person. Let me say this again. In the world of basketball, she means a lot. A whole lot. Okay. That's why a lot of her fans and supporters, one of which is me, right? A little bit of hurt, a little bit of pain, right? You wanted this victory for Coach Staley. You did. I did. Right? While being completely happy and proud of Coach Close and the UCLA program. Yeah. All right. Very much so. Right? But I'm not as familiar with the UCLA program. I have tremendous respect, all the rest of that stuff. But I'm Team Gamecocks. I'm Team Staley. All right? Me, yes. I rock with Coach Staley. That's no slight to anybody else. But That's my coach. Yeah, and there are some things. Yes, my family to this day is coming from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. That means a lot to me. That's where Coach Staley's from. I grew up, right? I'm from New Jersey. I grew up in New York, but I spent a lot of time in Philly growing up because that's where my family was. My grandmother, my aunt, my cousins to this day. Okay, my grandmother's no longer with us. Okay, very much in our hearts. My aunt, my cousin, Philly. That's my child. I spent so much time, and that means a tremendous amount. Okay, and that's where Coach Staley's from. All right, and she's brought that gritty, tough, insightful, right, dynamic approach to South Carolina and built up this program, excuse me, from scratch into a national powerhouse. Right? Player upon player going on into the WNBA and their success. Aja Wilson, right? That supermax multi-million dollar, player, 1.5 millions with the new CBA, right? Yeah. Aaliyah Boston out there with CC for the Indiana Fever. Now, Coach Staley, she's a successful coach, no doubt about it. But she's an influential coach, as well as the success on the court. Okay? She walks to the beat of her own drum, not a quote unquote traditional approach, whatever that means. An approach that um, we and who is we, when we say, but Coach Staley is her own woman. She talks her talk, she walks her walk, she gets the job done, and she expresses, I think, what a lot of how she expresses herself um, is distinctive and resonates deeply with a lot of folks. With a lot of folks, and I'm only stating the facts, but one of whom is just me, right? And where I'm going with this is, while giving Coach Staley her flowers, okay, for me, Coach Staley is the John Thompson of women's basketball. That's how I see her. All right. She's Big John Thompson of the women's game. Okay. And for basketball folks, I know the younger folks, you might not remember that Hoya paranoia. Go ahead and check out Requiem for the Big East. All right, 30 for 30 gold. If you don't, do yourself a favor. Go do that homework. Check out 30 for 30 Requiem for the Big East. Go do it. Okay, but Big John Thompson, right? 3 national championship appearances. Coulda, woulda, shoulda won all 3. That kid from Wilmington, that Jeffrey Jordan, and then team gonna shoot 70+% from the field. They're gonna be tough to beat. But the 82, 84, and 85 natties during the peak of the Big East. Oh boy. Okay. And so, yeah, Coach Staley is the John Thompson of women's basketball. We're talking about a coach that's placing player after player in the WNBA on Team USA, right? So on and forth. We're talking about that player development. Yes, she has national championships. Yes, she's in line for more. Okay. She's had challenges. She's bounced back, right? She, you know what I mean? She's lost a couple. She's gonna win a couple more. But she's somebody that is not afraid, nor should she be, to talk her own talk and walk her own walk. And show people a different way to have success. Right? Every coach has a right to have their own style. And you have more runway, the more that you win. Well, Dawn Stanley keeps on winning. So she's going to keep on expressing in that distinctive, important voice. And I am all here for it. And you know something? Kim Mulkey has her style and voice. All here for it. Gino Auriemma, who we will discuss a little bit because he stepped out of line, but he certainly has his style and voice. I'm all here for it. Okay. But each is bringing a little something different to the table. And I just want to, in this moment, give that shout out appreciation and respect to Coach Staley and right, how she flows the way that she flows, moves the way that she moves. All right. Because it's a beautiful thing. All right. And it adds value, yes, surplus value to the game of basketball. She's deeply committed to the women's game. Says it a number of times. Okay. She's tried and true with the women's game. Okay. Wonderful. All right. But she is a credit to the game. The game of basketball. Okay. And again, when I right. Okay. Because right, folks, this is the legacy that Coach Staley is carrying on. This is right. Your modern day John Thompson. Modern day John Thompson for the women's game. Yeah. Right. We can have success a different way with a different swagger and a different style. Oh yeah. Okay. And that's going to connect with athletes and give them options and opportunities that they previously didn't have. Yeah, they could play high level basketball, but they had to play for a coach that did it one way. Now they can play high level basketball and do it for a coach who's doing it another way. All right. And that's all right too. You understand? Can get through to people and advocate for positions. Coach Thompson, right? You know, he said, you know, okay, you want our players to have to pass these standardized tests. They need to have the right accommodations to take the tests. They need to have the right supports. Don't just no sink or swim like they have the same opportunities and resources at different schools. No. Like this one school has these resources and opportunities, then you're going to give those same resources and opportunities to this school over here. So these players and students writ large have just as much access to be successful. Oh, yes. He's going to point out those things and get them corrected. and not allow the narrative to be piled on more and more and more again and again and again when people from a minority community do fall short, like happens everywhere and across the board. We're not going to allow things to pile, it be piled on. Okay, you're wrong, you're wrong. Make the correction, admit what you did, be accountable, and move forward. No, Black excellence is American excellence. It is tied to a part of the American experience, just like any other cultural group. Right? And you can express yourself in a leadership role in the same fashion that you're able to express yourself in a complementary role. Yes. Okay. So we love Coach Thompson. We remember proudly the Hoya Paranoia and them days. Go ahead and check out Requiem for the Big East. Do yourself a favor. Patrick out of Cambridge, Rindge in Latin, and Bo Ston. He said, I got to take my talent down to the DMV. I got to do it. To play for Coach Thompson, I got to do it. Found himself in 3 natties in 4 years. Yes, sir, he did. Okay. It's tough, It's a beautiful, they had one of the best college careers ever. They could, 3 championships was right there, so close for them. Got the one, Okay. But it was a remarkable run that shines bright to this day. So hey, we love, appreciate, respect, and remember Coach Thompson. Yes, indeed we do. And Dawn Staley is carrying on that proud tradition to this day. And it's a beautiful thing for the game. It's a beautiful thing for the game of basketball. Yes, indeed. All right, folks, we're gonna keep it moving and grooving. We're gonna keep it moving and grooving. After, right? We got to get into, we went through some go through, right? In life, you got to go through your go through. Okay. So SandCity, we definitely have to kind of weigh in on this. Let me just go across and. Okay, I reached out to everybody. Everybody is good. Happy for people. Let me just go ahead and touch base. Everything is good. All right, everything is good. Okay. All right, so a picture is worth 1,000 words. You saw it. I saw it. We're looking at it right now. And this is what it boils down to in a nutshell, right? There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for everything. Okay. But this picture right here just sums up the root of why this was so wrong and went so wrong. Okay. Right? What does Gino look like in this picture? Okay. Gino looks like a coach. Gino looks like an authority figure. Okay. Right. And you see, Dawn hasn't turned up just yet. She's going to turn up. She's going to turn up. Please believe she's going to turn up. Okay, but right now, you just see, she's just trying to process what the heck is going on. Dawn is trying to process right now. Right? You know what I mean? Let me just get my mind around what it is, Gino, that you're doing. Okay? But to begin with, okay, where this thing goes all the way off of the rails is the perception, right? I don't believe Gino was trying to sun Dawn Staley. I said what I said, how I said it. And you know what I mean. I don't think Gino was trying to big time Dawn Staley. I don't think that Gino was trying to exert some authority over Dawn Staley. But a picture is worth 1,000 words, folks. Okay? And that's how this very well can be perceived. That you, my peer, my equal, my competitor, are speaking to me, a national champion in my own right, as if I am your subordinate. You are addressing me as less than equal to you. Folks, I do teach history. And the history behind this moment is readily apparent to any adult American, anybody with an understanding of our history in this country. The civil rights movement, the struggle for constitutional protections. All right? That part of our past and identity of folks in the majority culture, of which Gino is a part as a white male, and the minority culture of which Dawn Staley is a part, twofold, as an African American and a female. Right, I recognize females population-wise are at least half, if not more, than the population. But in terms of authority positions, women have had to battle to have access to opportunities and particularly leadership. All right? And African Americans are quite familiar with the struggle to be recognized for their monumental contributions within American society. All right? So there's we haven't even begun. There's thousands of words in this picture. Thousands. And again, let's begin with the perception. I've said it and I'm going to say it again. Gino Auriemma is good people's. So we're not going to get into idea Gino racist, Gino discriminating, Gino bigoted. We're not having that on SandCity. Okay, the perception can lend itself if you just see the picture and have no idea who the people are. Then all of those things can come right up to the surface. Can come very much up to the surface and boil right on over. And that's a part of sports. That's a part when the different communities come together. Yes, it's a beautiful thing when we all come together, but the same challenges that we have outside of the world of sports and day-to-day society, they bring themselves right with us. They may be on the back burner, but they're very much there. Okay, and we have to deal with them in certain ways, just like we deal with them in the day-to-day 9-to-5 world. Right? So sports is beautiful and wonderful, and it's challenging, just like anything else that is worthwhile. So let's continue. Just on a root fundamental level. Okay? There is a perception, right? And then there is the reality. Okay? Talked about perception. White, male, patriarchal dominance. Okay? Minority, female, right? Ascending, women having leadership opportunities. And having success in those opportunities, and those things becoming the norm. Right? That's the perception side. Now let's go the reality. Right? Gino Auriemma is a tremendous coach. As far as I'm concerned, a tremendous human being. He respects people from all backgrounds, works with people from all backgrounds, doesn't put himself above others. And he is a very important person in the game of basketball, writ large. First and foremost in the women's game, but then in the game of basketball. Our global community, Gino Auriemma is a luminary. He is a wise veteran presence in person in the game of basketball. Multiple gold medals, the whole 9 yards. All right. So Gino is very important, and Dawn is very important. All right. And now let's get into this reality, this circumstance. All right. Time and a place. Time and a place. And this, again, what jumps out here, I was going for this, you know what I mean? Let's keep it on, because you know what I mean, is that it doesn't matter how many rodeos you've been on. It doesn't matter. Right? Got a quote from another UConn alum, Sugar Ray Allen. All right. The secret is there is no secret. It's boring old habits. The secret is there is no secret. It's just boring old habits. If anybody should know better, right? What's on clear display in this picture in terms of how to conduct yourself and what not to do, right? It has to be Gino Auriemma. And so this picture, the thousands and thousands of words that it's worth, goes to show you. You could be the luminary, the grand old man, the most national champions, and all of the praise and the adulation and the respect and the appreciation and all of those things. But Gino is over here looking like a first-year coach. The grand old man is looking like a first-year novice because he did not control himself. Been in more rodeos than anybody else, more natties than anybody else, written more books and all of the wisdom and all of the, and he's done it, and we give him credit for that. We expect him to be that person. And just like Sisyphus gets to the top of the, and one gets right up, and it come that ball drops and goes all the way down to the bottom. Yes, you, Gino Ariema. I'm telling you, that's why sports is beautiful. You, Gino Ariema. You didn't check yourself, control yourself, compose yourself, do all the things that you have to do. There is no secret. Boring old habits. And Gino skipped over a couple of those boring old habits to put himself in this hot water. So that's another big takeaway about this. All right. It wasn't the upstart, even though Dawn has been doing this for some years, 16, 17, she's not new to this. Okay. But she's right. She got a ways to go to catch Gino. She got a ways to go to catch Gino. Excuse me. But she's been after this for a while. Okay. And Gino's been after it for about, almost twice as long as Dawn has been doing this. To the point where Gino was Dawn's coach on Team USA. But it's the old sage is the one with the juvenile behavior. The old sage is the one breaking those fundamental rules. Okay, that's another. And yeah, and Gino, yeah, so that's right. But it's instructive. It's instructive. Okay, it doesn't matter. You could be Coach K. You could be right, Coach Boeheim, or one of these luminaries. You don't check yourself. You don't leave that ego at the door. You don't bite your lip when you don't have some mindfulness. When you know that you're in your feelings, then you can end up just like this. Embarrass yourself in the same way. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. If you're gonna get, and this is any type of success that you have, people, right, that go up the ladder and I want to be successful like so and so and have the money and have the the fame and I want to buy, we covet what the next person has. Okay, do you want the responsibility that goes along with it, or do you appreciate your anonymity? Because nobody knows, right, when we mess up out there, and just a guy out here in television land. You don't know when I mess up. I know, but you don't know. I'm just a guy. I got my and and I mess up quite a bit. And I do my best. You know, we do our best to. Oh, I made a mistake. Okay, man, I forgot to do this and check that, and you know what I mean, and we just gotta keep picking yourself up and getting back on the saddle, get back in the saddle, and keep on riding, keep on trucking. Right? Yeah, that's life. But on the other side of it, for the folks, the working class heroes out there, which I try to be, we have that anonymity, so we can struggle and fail, in private. Whereas when you are right, multi-million-dollar salary and cater this and chauffeur that, and right, but you don't get to mess up in private. You don't get to fail quietly. It's on display for everyone to see. All right. So, Gino, you lost because you lost. You only scored 48 points. You, not the refs, not you only scored 48 points in a Final Four matchup to being the number one overall seed in the tournament. You lost by double digits. That's on you. Okay? And that again speaks to this. Okay, he's out here, you know what I mean, popping off and going off and having an issue on this and that and the third. Whatever you're mad at, Gino, is that going to suffice for the double-digit deficit? Is that going to be the 14 points that you lost by? Whatever the individual issue is, does that amount to the 14 points that you lost by? Or is that a reason that you didn't even score 50 points in the game with the number one team in the country? Or is it maybe what? Whatever you're, one or two foul calls amounting to 3 or 4 points or 5 or 6 points. You lost by 14. How about the other 7 points, Gino? But that's another piece of this. You lost because you lost, Gino. You knew that you were going to lose. This game was not in question. And once, what this shows me is Gino knew he was going to lose. Gino put up the white flag. In his mind, we're going to lose the game. The general threw up the white flag. And as soon as he did that, what did he then devote his energy to? Not thinking about why he had to put the white flag up in the first place. How did I get myself here? Where is Joey Knish from Rounders when you need him? You did it to yourself. Don't talk to me about stones. I play for cash. My kids eat. Shout out to Rounders, Matt Damon, John Turturro, John Malkovich, Edward Norton. Late 90s gold, indie classic. You did it to yourself. That's who's responsible. So when Gino put that white flag up in his mind, over there on the sideline, steaming, his next thought should have been, how did I get here? Because you, Gino, put yourself there. Okay? A minor beatdown. Not a 28-point beatdown like we saw today. But doggone it, you lose by 14 points. You Dawn and then put some pause on you. They put the pause on you. So once you conceded, which in and of itself is another, you should never concede. Right? You're always in your mind, okay, you don't ever concede. That's a little bit further out. All right, I might, you know what I mean? In your, okay, we're going to be losing, but we're going to lose by 12. We're going to lose by 8. All right, we might lose, but if we do lose, it's going to be by 7. That's where your mind needs to go in those very difficult moments in a Final Four where the probability of you coming all the way back is 0.1, is 0.0000, right? When you hit that 4-0, that 0.0000, right? Right? Almost impossible for you to come back. Okay, well, let's lose with a little bit more grace and dignity. Let's cut into that lead. We're going to lose with some grace and dignity over here. That's what we're going to do. We're going to find some kind of silver lining. Right? Where's Bradley Cooper at when you need him? Brad Silver lining. That's what we're going to do. We're going to find a silver lining over here. Right? That's how you lose. With some grace and some dignity. No. White flag went up. And the next thought was, I'm going to give so-and-so being Dawn Staley, a piece of my mind. That's what I'm finna do. White flag went up. I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. I'm going to tell them about themselves. That's what I'm finna do. That's what mode Gino was on. Over there. Okay? Which is another element for correction. Yeah, when the sensei fall all the way to the bottom of the hill, guess what he need? Just like anybody else, some correction. Just like the novice, just like the white belt. Okay? Because you did it to yourself. But again, in our unpacking of it, and how did we get here in the first place? Arguably the greatest coach in the game's history. Acting like a first-year individual. How did we get here? Because he conceded, which, by the way, we know that he did. We know that he put up the white flag, okay? Because this type of behavior is not, he was thinking on this. He was thinking on this. I'm a, you know what I mean? And the margin shows he knew they wasn't coming back, but he could have, instead of taking all this energy and directing it to Dawn, he could have infused all this energy in his team and had them fight to the last play. That's what he should have been doing. Fight to the last play. I know it hurts. I don't know how much it hurts because I wasn't the number one team in the nation, the overwhelming favorite, having won 30, 40, 50, however many straight games that you won. You got it back rocking again. You made it all the way back to the top of Mount Olympus after people slept on you. Last year, your team was finally healthy. Paige, Ozzie together, the young strong in the front court. You put it on South Carolina. Okay? And the year before, you had Iowa up against the wall with injuries before the foolishness was with the illegal screen call. So you've been scratching and clawing, and you got back to the top, Gino. You proved that you can do it. And this was another year to get another natty, to put it, to be out there with Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear. Put it far out of reach with John Stockton and his all-time records. Shout out to John Stockton, missed 26 games his entire career. That's why he's the NBA all-time assist and steals leader. And LeBron is hanging around. He's hanging around, but he's still got a ways to go to get with John. John didn't do this low management foolishness. 19 years showing up to work every single day, hard hat on, best job on the planet. I'm taking this serious. I ain't leaving none of this out there. So that's what Gino was lined up to do. Get another natty on top of the, 10s and 12s and however many he has before then. Then he had himself a little hiatus. Now he's right back in there, going on another run. He was going on another run until he ran into Dawn on Friday night. He was. That's where it was going. All right. But then that Dawn and that, Dawn had something for him. He had something for his behind. And he ain't know what to do. He ain't know what to do. Dawn came out with a game plan and just completely derailed all of that. And I know it hurts. That's no excuse. Zero. Excuse me. But we see the hurt in right? Because Gino was over here, I'm making history. Had his speech all written, right? Yeah, all that stuff. All the hours that he put in, I put in, the 16, 17. I'm in my 70s and I'm still putting in these, I'm going to get to that mountaintop. I'm going to thank this person. I'm going to thank that person. It was all lined up. Yes, ready. But you know what you didn't factor in? Dawn Staley. You ain't factor in Dawn and all that. No, you didn't. Because she had something for you. All right? And all those best laid plans, all those great expectations, shout out to Charles Dickens, okay? Gone. Blink of an eye, out of here. Okay? And you're thunderstruck. But Gino, you took all that and directed it at the wrong person. You needed to get on that Michael Jackson. Shout out to Coach Ronnie Ferguson. That's who I borrowed it from. You need to get on that Michael Jackson and look in the man in the mirror. The man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. What? Now that was I can't do, you know what I mean? Gonna make a change for once in my life. Feel real good. Gonna make a difference. I can't do my, you understand what I'm saying? Can't nobody do Mike like Mike. By the way, you saw that Michael Jackson movie coming out? You know what I mean? That's right, folks. Y'all don't know. The 80s was awesome. The 80s was awesome. Woo! Human Nature is also, that's my jam. Okay? Looking out across the nighttime. Electric eyes are everywhere. Woo! Don't make me get my mic. I got a mic. Don't make me get the microphone on you now. I said, don't make me get the mic, YouTube. See that girl. She knows I'm watching. She likes the way I stare. I say, why? Tell him that it's human nature. It's human nature, Gino. Dog, I had to bring the mic out for this. Okay? Gino, human nature. The man is up in his feelings. In his feelings. All right? Let me put the mic away right quick. I might have to bring it back. The mic almost tried to. Hold on. Let me balance it out. Mic on. We ain't gonna drop the mic just yet. I mean, we doing. We happy Easter, SandCity. We ain't gonna drop the mic just yet. Okay, no. Yeah. All right. We just going. How did we get here in the first place? We haven't even gotten to the toe down. We haven't gotten to the toe down yet. How did we get here in the first place? Okay. Whole bunch of misdirection. Whole bunch of projecting things on the people that ain't got nothing to do with. This is a man in the mirror situation. This is a human nature situation. Gino Auriemma, you did it to yourself. You took an L. A resounding double digit, didn't even score 50 points, L. You did that. Not the refs, not Dawn, not nobody. And as mad as you want to get about all the speeches that you wrote and the interviews that you were going to do and the plaques that you were going to put up, you didn't do it because you didn't do it. Period. And then you went out and behaved in a fashion. You showed true colors. Never mind you being the grand old man, the wise old sage, the luminary, acting on a juvenile way. Okay? So the fall from grace there. But Gino, man, Gino, you picked the wrong one. You picked the wrong one to do all that. That's North Philadelphia right there. And beyond that, that's black excellence. This pictures is worth 1,000. Because again, we're looking at Dawn is still processing what this man is doing right now. We know once it hit home, you're talking down to me. You're being disrespectful. You're talking foolishness. Whatever your grievance is, Gino, you didn't shake hands with me before the game. You said this to the ref. You didn't put a whipped cream in my... Whatever the disagreement that you're so angry about, it had nothing to do with the... You lost because you lost. You just flat out lost. So that there's just no reason for this. And then the fact that it's coming from who it's coming from, somebody so respected, somebody that has a history of being a sore loser. You know? Then we had to get the response that we got. And again, this connects with what has been said before about why Dawn means so much in the game of basketball and about why Dawn is our modern day John Thompson. Because one of the things that John Thompson said, we're not going to be Jackie Robinson for you. We're not going to be humble. We're not going to be, not that they weren't, Georgetown wasn't humble, okay? But this perspective of, oh, thank you so much. And I just appreciate being here. And thank you so much. You know, acting as if you don't belong in these places, in these spaces on equal footing and bring surplus value and more surplus value than the next person. Yes, I'm happy to be here. Yes, I'm grateful to be here. Yes, I'm humble to be here. Yes, I also belong here. I'm supposed to be here. I make this environment better. People want to see me here. Okay? So I got some standing up in this here thing that's going on, this sports world that's going on. I'm not the help. I'm not a subordinate. I'm not a private. You understand? I got some stripes on my chest when I walk around these environs. Earned stripes. Nobody giving up, nobody nothing. Earned. So back to Coach Thompson. With all that in mind, we're going to carry ourselves a certain type of a way. We're going to have some chutzpah. We're going to have some attitude. We're going to do things the same way that we do things in our community when other people aren't around. We're not code switching over here. It's going down how we say it's going down, with class, with dignity, with attitude, with swagger, with excellence. Get on board. Pull up a seat. Because this is what the people want to see. That's why they're paying that money, top dollar. Oh, yeah. So within that, we flow in how we flow. And we don't need approval. We don't need validation. Okay? From anybody. Those that's been there before, those that might have other leadership roles. We don't need that. You play your position. We're not bothering you. We over here doing us. Okay. So, yes, this does have a direct link to Coach Thompson. And yes, people going back to Coach had a problem with Coach Thompson doing things the way he did things, when they should have just been focused on the success and the results. But it was a problem for some that Coach Thompson did things the way that he did them. Sound familiar? It's a problem now that certain people are doing things the way that they're doing them, as if it's not completely within the rules and on the same playing field. But it's a problem. All right? You know, you told on yourself, and then you manned up and you wrote a very you wrote a respectful apology, right? And then today in the broadcast, it was noted that, you know, you also reached out to Coach Staley, that, you know, Rebecca Lobo does a great job, you know, UConn alum, national champion, you know, that you reached out and you guys had your private conversation, right? And it takes a lot. It takes a lot to apologize. You know what I mean? And you did that. And I credit you for that. Okay. It doesn't negate what you did, you know, but it shows that you can acknowledge that you were all the way wrong. All the way wrong. Right? Okay. Let's come over to Coach Staley's side of this, right? So you got to process all of this in you know, this is raw. But there's, just because it's happening quickly does not mean that it's not super hyper condensed, right? Because I've been, you know, and there's a lot of other great programs out there that have been talking about it. There's so much in this moment, just like there was so much a couple of years ago in the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark moment, right? Because these moments in sports where we, the people, give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to be free. The people. It's a beautiful thing. Talk about Philly, talk about NYC, talk about whatever it is. Okay, we got Harlem over here. We got Little Italy over there. We got Chinatown over there. Okay. Okay. If you're talking about Boston, we got Southie over here. Irish American. We got all of this. Jamaica Queens over here. It's a beautiful thing. It's a hard thing, though. Right? We're better together, no doubt about it. We lift each other up, no doubt about it. But there's these tension points that we have to go through. And that's all mixed into this. So over on Coach Staley's side, right? Right? You know, you and Coach Staley is shaking her hand. You know, like, yeah, you lost. I won, you lost. I know you're mad, but you know, it is what it is. So I'm just gonna shake your hand and keep it moving. Right? You know, we're not best buddies, right? This shows that, you know, we have our differences. Okay. there's a ferocity in our competition as long as they're along with the respect. All right. But yeah, I'm gonna shake your hand and keep it moving. No, you're gonna come at me some type of a way, which the surprise is right only elevates the anger. Right? Like if Gino, now that this has happened, and as much as Gino's apologized, like their handshakes are never gonna be the same. Right? Because I can forgive you, but I'm not forgetting what you did. So I can't. The trust now has been fractured based on this. So right, you know what I mean? Like, yes, we're going to get back, but our interactions, particularly as competitors in game situations, I'm gonna be on my guard around you from now on. And Gino's he's probably never gonna do this again. Has the sense not to put himself in this position again. But from Dawn's perspective, in terms of how she reacted, right, and why she did have to turn up, right, that, again, and her turning up, for me, you say yes, okay, I'm glad the situation is resolved, but she showed some fire there and had more fire to show. Coaches held him, you know what I mean? Because there's an ete brute in this, right? Like, I didn't expect this from you. Particularly after last year when you kicked our tail, it was all hugs and smiles, which Dawn very much remembers. You beat us down last year, okay? You had it going on, and it was all hugs and smiles. So now this year, I come, you know what I mean? I just shake your hand and keep my, and you gonna give me agita? You gonna give me attitude? Never mind. You don't have no reason to give me attitude. Never mind. I wouldn't speak to you this way, and you're speaking to me in a way that is kind of questioning the power dynamics here. Oh no. So it take me a while to process all this. I finally processed it, which 0 to 100, and then that you caught me off guard. So now take that 0 to 100, go up to 200 now. Go to 0 to 200 now. You done caught me off guard. So I got to turn on up now. I got to tell you about yourself. Okay, and that's what Dawn did. Had to be separated. Checking these updates. And he went from there. Okay. A lot. We can two of the top to ever do it in the game. Right. There'll be further battles ahead between these two. We didn't need this, but we got it. Gino stepped out of line. Dawn clapped right back. And it's as simple as that. But still, water runs deep. And how we got here. Okay, it's there's a lot of water under that bridge. All right, and it goes beyond the two distinctive personalities and styles of these two coaches. Right, it goes beyond the two different personalities and styles of these two coaches. Okay, but it goes to some of the central narratives of who we are as a people, as Americans. Okay, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. Okay, I'm glad there was a resolution of sorts. I mean, this is all still right. Happened 2 days ago. Don has to play in the national championship game. Don obviously lost in the national championship game. So there's a lot of things that still need to settle. Most definitely. But we've gotten on a better path. We've gotten on a better path. Okay, and I'm thankful for that. Thankful for that. So, SandCity, yes. We're moving and grooving. Yes, indeed. No end in sight. Just checking my socials. Everything is good. Everybody out there, television land, is doing good. And I know we got that natty coming up tomorrow. We'll give some takes there. Once again, let's see. Let me take a look here. Oh yeah, I got my Rudy. So we're gonna do. Let me just get a couple here. Power up. We'll go over to the men's side for tomorrow's national championship game. Then we'll do. I wish everybody happy Easter out there. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I also want to dive into talk a little bit about Jaden Ivey. Young Ivy, who is finding himself. Okay. All righty, so let's Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So while we are shifting over, talk men's basketball. Let's go ahead and lift up South Carolina alum, A'ja Wilson, talking about growing the women's game and the historic CBA contract. All right, and let's preview tomorrow's game. Let me get a little bit better art. Okay, let's get this. That looks good to me. And let us discuss. Okay. Gonna have to come here. Apologize, technical difficulties. What's going on? What's up, Chris? How you doing? Nope. I get my second win here. We're talking about the national championship game tomorrow. So good question. Been at it for a little while. But as they say, I have not yet begun to fight. A few more topics that we need to get to. But we're going to talk Natty. We discussed the women's championship Final Four. So we're moving over to the men's side. Had to get. So go on, come on in, lock in. With us. Again, we want to, as I get a little snack of Rudy, let me know if it's affecting the delivery here. I got to get a little snack of Rudy as I, you know what I mean? A little snack of Rudy going into the back half of the program. But we're going to move over to the men's side and discuss tomorrow's marquee matchup. But you know, let me know. Let me scroll down a bit, get ourselves in order. And no, that's the wrong one. Come on now. Over here. All right. We're back. We've ironed over the technical difficulties. We're back on our feet. National championship. We got UConn going for their third natty in 4 years. And the Michigan Wolverines looking for their first natty since 1989. All right, we shall discuss. Pull up the art. All right, folks. So this is tough for me. Okay. This is USC job. Dusty May said he's good where he's at. Tommy Lloyd of Arizona fame, he said he's good where he's at. You know, it's a good point. Danny Hurley, obviously, Lakers came calling, said no to the Lakers. Similarly to how Coach K said no to the Lakers. And a lot of times these, when these job openings come up, I think about Coach Cal, Coach K, of course. The current coaches, they can use these as leverage, right? So UNC wants me. Okay, so, hey, go back to Arizona. I mean, what are you going to pay? Right? That's my first takeaway. It gives the coaches kind of a leg up. Second and third takeaways there before, and it's an important point. The folks that they're talking about, like Billy Donovan, who would do a great job at Carolina, he's a Providence guy, right? He'd do a great job. Who is the next Carolina coach kind of in line? Okay, Hubert Smith. Hubert Smith. Hubie Davis. Got a bad rap with his best player not being there. That doesn't mean that he should have given up the 15, 16 point lead that he had. And he should know better, right? You can't lose in the first round at North Carolina back to back. You just can't do it, right? Like you have to be Dean Smith or Roy Williams in order to do that, right? And with Roy Williams, let's remember that he was at Kansas, had it going, and Dean Smith asked him, right? Dean Smith asked him, and Roy said, all due respect, but I'm at Kansas. And then Doherty came in, and Brad Doherty just, he's not a North Carolina head coach, meaning he's not a national championship winning head coach at North Carolina. Right? You have to win national championships. And so when Dean Smith asked him a second time, and we remember that Roy Williams had just gotten finished taking Kansas to the national championship game in 2003, right, with Heinrich and Collison and those guys, and they pressed him in the interview, and he used a 4-letter word because he wasn't having it. But then he returned to North Carolina, right? And in 2 years, he has them win a national championship game. He loses the Natty in 2003, right? So that was Rashad McCants and them freshman year. McCants, Felton, and Sean May. Then 2004 was UConn's year. It's good to see a lot of the UConn guys at the game, right? Emeka Okafor, Ben Gordon, Josh Boone, Charlie Villanueva. I think Rudy Gay was on that team. Team was absolutely loaded. Lost 10 games, but got hot and won a natty. And then in his second, that 2005 team that couldn't stand each other, or maybe like Rashad McCants couldn't stand everybody. I was at prep school the same year when Rashad McCants was at prep school. He went to New Hampshire, which is in New Hampshire. I went to a school called Winchington, which is in Central Mass. So, I remember Rashad McCants in prep school. Is the point. He walked to the beat of his own drum then. He's walked to the beat of his own drum since. But Roy Williams was able to keep that group together and win the Natty in his second year. And then he won 2 more. Maybe a third. I believe he won 3 in Carolina. Right? But he's Roy Williams. He's an all-time coach. He was outstanding coach at Kansas, number of years. Brought the same system to Carolina. Didn't miss a beat. So as angry as the Carolina people were, for me, it's like George Karl is like in his 80s. Like, who is the Carolina alum that is ready? Where's the Jerry McNamara that's ready to just step in and take the job? I don't. So now you put yourself in a New York Knicks situation, getting rid of a true general in Tom Thibodeau with no like sure thing. The Knicks thought that they could just use some finesse and take Jason Kidd out of Dallas because they were a dumpster fire and that traded away a dynasty. But they didn't have any assurance of that, and Jason Kidd was under contract. So the Knicks trade away Thibodeau for a comparable, like somebody that's just like Tibbs, but maybe smiles a little bit more. I don't have any time for it, but okay. So the Carolina thing, and then you add to all that before we get to the natty. NIL is, I mean, they have billionaires on the payroll, and those, you just need a better coach because they're getting players because they're going to spend, right? Dusty May, Florida Atlantic. What are we doing here? He's a Florida Atlantic coach, but you combine that with NIL money, and he has Michigan. So let's come to the national championship game. Folks, you know how I feel about the Hurleys and the St. Anthony's tradition, right? Hook, line, and sinker. So not having seen Michigan, my brackets were UConn and Duke. I might have done Michigan for 1 just because I remember somebody saying Remember, and I didn't get a chance to sit down and watch bracketology like I wanted to, but I remember somebody saying that watch out for Michigan, like they're the real deal. Okay. Watching the tournament games, got a chance to see Michigan in the earlier rounds. I was impressed. If you hear that, saw the Chuckster talking about it, just in terms of dominant teams, Anthony Davis, Kentucky team, Stephen Castle's UConn team, and this Michigan team. Right? Now, it remains to be seen if they can live up to that hype. All I'm saying is this UConn team is not the Stephen Castle UConn team. They're talented, obviously. Yeah. So you had some, I as I studied for a bit there, I wish I had gotten a chance to see Michigan during the regular season. Honestly, keeping it 100, school, refereeing, I did not get a chance to sit down and watch many college basketball games. Obviously, you follow the standings, you follow the top players, right? DeBansa, Peterson, Boozer, right? But I'm not sitting down like watching these games. Sit down, watch Michigan. And what's instructive for me is Elliot Cadu, who transferred from North Carolina, is a New York kid. Played for the New York Lightning. Okay, one of the 4 Nike programs out of New York. Okay, they got the Lightning. They got the New York Wrens. Jonathan Kuminga played for them. You have the PSA Cardinals. Okay, all in the greater New York metropolitan area. And then you have City Rocks in upstate New York. So Elliot Cadu ran wild on the Peach Jam circuit his junior summer, playing for the New York Lightning that was loaded. I got to go back and check out that roster, but a 3 or 4 or 5 high major impact players on his New York Lightning team. Okay? Right, and you see Elliot Cadu, right? He's undersized, and but he's a New York City go get him point guard. And so he runs wild. The Lightning are the class of the EYBL circuit his junior year, and then he pulled, he committed to Carolina after that. He was going into his senior year. They pulled some magic out of a hat. Excuse me. And he was, eligible for kiss. So he's a little bit younger. All right. Always like to hear that. Lendeborg is a Jersey prospect. Didn't realize Mara was a Mick Cronin guy. I mean, okay. And add to that with Michigan, Morels, the power forward, is a Chicago kid. I'm not. Morez Johnson, okay, he's a Chicago kid, played for Mean Streets on the EYBL circuit and made some noise. Okay, I'm not sure if he's a year younger than Elliott or the same. They were on the EYBL circuit together. All right. Right, and we know about the Chicago basketball tradition. Okay, Anthony Davis, Derrick Rose, Ben Wilson. All right, back to Isaiah Thomas, Dwayne Wade, on and on and on. Right. So their front court with Mara and Johnson, and then Lendeborg, Big Ten Player of the Year. Kenny could do at the point. So what am I saying here? Buddy of mine put it. Okay, so Reed come over from Michigan, and he's now at UConn. All right, there you go. Good. Um, my heart is UConn. Okay. My mind, Michigan is more talented than UConn. Right? I think this is a more now UConn obviously, just because they're only going 6 or 7 deep, and Michigan can go 8, 9 deep. All right. This game reminds me of the 1999 Natty. All right, where I'm dating myself for the young bucks out there, but right, UConn has Duke's number. Now you might say, of course, I know that based on I know you saw what happened, with the miracle on, parquet, the turnover heard around the world. I know you know that, and Mullins hitting the shot from the half court, fine. But do you know what happened in 1999 when Duke had the invincible team with Elton Brand, Shane Battier, Corey Maggette, William Avery, who folks don't remember, who was Jason Williams before Jason Williams. Corey Maggette coming off the bench on that Duke team, right? In 1999, Duke was the Trajan Langdon, did I mention? Duke was the overwhelming favorite to win the national championship after they bowed out, gave up an 18-point lead to Kentucky the year before when Tubby Smith got his natty out of nowhere after Pitino took his talents elsewhere to the NBA. Tubby Smith got his natty with Pitino's players, right? They were down 18 to a Steve Wojciechowski-led Duke team and came all the way back and won. I wasn't much of a Duke fan then, so I didn't care. Okay, so Duke comes back the next year with a couple diaper dandies, i.e. Corey Maggette, and those players that Elton Brand, sophomore year, soon to be number 1 pick. Elton Brand is from New York, Peekskill, New York, which is near where I'm from, where I grew up in Rockland County. Small world. He played against the high school I would have went to in New York. They were telling me about him. So that 99 Duke team was like invincible. Depth, talent, the whole 9 yards. Coach K and Calhoun's bunch, Rip Hamilton, Khalid El Amin, Jake Vosco, right? They just came out and weren't intimidated. They just weren't, and they just played Duke head up. Duke scored, it was just a nip and tuck game, and they ended up just outmaneuvering Duke in a very close, competitive. But Duke was by far more talented. Only player from that UConn team is Rip. Whereas Elton Brand, Corey Maggette, Shane Battier, William Avery had a, coffee roll, had it, what did Rob Parker say? Coffee and a sweet roll. Yeah. But UConn beat them. They weren't intimidated. They ran their stuff. They won the game. You could make the same argument in 2004 where UConn, where Duke had Luol Deng, JJ Redick, Chris Duhon. I don't know if Chris Carrawell was on that Duke team. Shevlik Randolph, who ended up getting his job taken by Sheldon Williams, who you may remember, married to Candace Parker 4-time. Yeah. So that Duke team in 2004, Luol Deng, remember, was the number 2 overall prospect in the class of 2003. Number 1 prospect was very good LeBron James. The number 3 prospect, and they went to the same high school, which is interesting, same prep school, Blair Academy, was Charlie Villanueva, who took his talents to UConn. So the UConn team in 04, which lost 10 games, was more talented, but they were not. They had to get together. They had so much talent on that UConn team. Guys had to, right? You got Josh Boone coming off the bench, Charlie Villanueva coming off the bench, Rudy Gay. Team was just ridiculous. But again, they beat Duke in a, what might have won by like 4 or 3, but that game could have went either way. So those are 2 more national championships for Coach K right there, where he was Boozer, who plays like his dad, reminds me of a Marc Gasol type of a player, a back to the basket big. He's not necessarily the defender that Gasol was. If you remember, Gasol took a Defensive Player of the Year award away from LeBron James. Right? I can't give him Pau Gasol. He's not as tall as Pau. Right? But, Caden plays a lot like his dad. Big, physical, rebounding. Big. He you don't want to put him in the same category as a Jahlil Okafor, who quickly became a dinosaur. Right? Even though, he a lot of people forget about Jahlil Okafor, won a national championship at Duke. And was a, solid back to the basket post player. I don't, there are teams that will allow, I look at a team like Memphis that plays inside out. That's true to how, like, Memphis is all, I like how they play now. I believe in Zach Edey. I'm glad they picked him. This whole idea of just run up and down and shoot a bunch of threes and bigs don't matter. It doesn't jive with me. But Boozer's going to have to go to a team that will give him the ball in the post and let him post up and not just have him sitting in the corner trying to shoot a bunch of threes. Paulo, is he more, I think, yes. Paulo is, I would say, more polished than Camden. Get the Boozer Buzz mixed up. Because Banchero, he was a huskier dude when he got to Duke. He's out of, the Pacific Northwest. And is a player that was not lights out, as a prospect, was a good, top, but he wasn't like the number 1 player in his class. And he had a good year. Was Paulo around the COVID? It was Jalen Johnson who was the one that left Duke, and that hurt his draft status during COVID. So Banchero, I think, was just after that. And his draft class was a little bit wishy-washy. Banchero, like, he was not the lock for the number 1 pick in a draft that had all this talent. Like, Banchero could have went 2 or 3, and he just did well enough during the process to convince people to take him 1. Now, to his credit, he comes into the league, he gets in much better shape, and he's much more, as you see in the league, of a small forward or like an undersized power forward than when he was at Duke. He was just a bigger inside player. So I think Boozer is going to still be an inside player. You could compare him to a Kevin Love. I think, rebounds at a high clip. Like, Boozer can shoot. He's not a bad shooter. It's kind of mechanical, but he has, he's got good form. He's got good touch. But he's his father's son. His father was not a perimeter player in any way, shape, or form. And neither, I don't think that's just his game. I think he's an inside player that can step outside, but he's somebody you want around the basket to finish, and get you paint points if teams will allow that anymore. Right? I think, you look at a guy like a Chet Holmgren, who's much better defensively, and better lateral quickness than Boozer. But Boozer, he runs the floor well, right? I just think he could be, and not that, he has the mentality like he should eat glass. He should average 12 rebounds a game, right? Make his, almost like, and he's not, like Evan Mobley is a good natural defender. He's a shot blocker. But I think Boozer could just be kind of like almost like a nose tackle. And if he's not blocking shots, he's like pushing guys out to take, use his physicality around the basket, use his touch around the basket offensively. He's a good free throw shooter. Right? He's a traditional big in a up and down game. But you still need bigs to win. So I'm a fan. My heart breaks for him and his brother, with the turnover. But it is what it is. My heart still breaks for Akeem Olajuwon, who didn't box out and lost to NC State. Right? Guy shoots an air ball. Dream, if the Dream had just tapped that ball, they win a national championship game. Like, what the heck was he doing? He just watched the ball. Right? It's craziness. You lose concentration for like 1 second and it costs you everything. So it's a tough hit. All right. So yeah, come to the present with UConn and Michigan. Like I'm a Hurley guy. So I want UConn, like I have no problem. But I feel like this is Michigan's year. There is, and you're not going to out physical UConn. They're going to be a physical, gritty team. And that's where this game, right? UConn has less depth, but if the referees let them play as they should, and there's not these nickel dimer fouls, and right, so UConn's top 7 guys can just play, okay, and you can just have strength versus strength, right? Then Mullins can get hot. Like UConn's guys can cook, right? So it's going to come down to execution. What I'm saying is that Lendenberg should slow down Braylon Mullins as a freshman. That's the first matchup that should be clear. Okay? I'm bigger, stronger, faster than you. Like we're both can shoot. Like Mullins can shoot. Lendenberg can shoot. Lendenberg is better to me going to the basket because he's just bigger. But if he allows Mullins to, right, if that's like a wash, if he wants to play this finesse game, right? And my takeaway, I say if Carabao, like he has to ball out for them to stay close. I don't think it's any guarantee of them winning if he plays a good game. If he plays a good game, they'll be competitive. Because Reed has to go against Johnson and Mara. And they got some other bigs they bring off the bench. Right? Like you saw Mara They beat Arizona. It was a lot of like pick and roll, and you didn't really see Johnson, which they can do, just give the ball to the post players and just go get a bucket. You saw Arizona doing that more so. In the first half, right? Their big was winning some isolation matchups. Exactly. You know, he's got to stay on the court because, particularly in the second half, like teams want to just. I thought Elliott could do was a little. I thought there was some turnovers in the first half that, he was holding the ball too long. He was holding the ball too long and not moving it around and getting it to their bigs. Right? Like Elliott, drive it, kick it. Like he can hit the runner because he's going to get open shots because you have to cover the other guys, but they don't need him to score. They need him to set the other guys up. Right? And if they're going to give you a layup, then take the layup. But he attempted a couple straight line drives against went in there with the trees looking for foul calls, which he's not going to get, that he should have dumped off. Or if the ball is stagnant in the half court, just go inside to the post and just let Mara, go one-on-one or Johnson go one-on-one and back those guys down and score. Or back them down, make them double, and then, start the blender to scheme an open three. Right? So, yeah, Caravan, if he balls out, right, then I think that they'll stay close. But if he doesn't ball out and those long rebounds allow Michigan to get out and transit, because they will run. As big and lumbering as they are, they get out in transition and run. And you have these burly, Kenny, Lundenborg, like if you get them in the open court, they're either going to Euro you or just like, obviously, Bradley got a couple charges, so they're sensitive to the guys trying to take a charge. But they're going to put pressure on the defense with their size and speed if UConn does not hit. Okay? Right? Long story, not so long. UConn is not going down 18 points and coming back against Michigan. It's not going to happen. If they go down 15, 17 points, they're going to lose. Right? So this game, and I think Arizona got frazzled. I think that they started to go into isolation nonsense, right? They started to feel like they were not used to being down, and they showed that. So UConn is going to stay together. If they go down, they're going to stay together. They're going to keep running offense. They're going to stay in what they do to keep generating things. So I think that's going to be a different part of this game. I don't see UConn going down 25. I see him going down 15. I see him going down 17. Then they can make a run to make it 8, and then I see Michigan pushing it back to 12. Like, you know what I mean? Michigan is not going to let them get it from 17 to 3. So, yeah, very impressive. UConn, how they, Illinois is very talented, and Hurley, you can see that he's a coach's son and a point guard. Like their offense, their half court offense, it's precise. There's a lot of it's they're going to move you around. There's going to be audibles, right? If you just, okay, this is a set. If you over anticipate, they'll dive to the basket and get a dunk. Okay, so UConn's offense, they can participate in this chess match. I'm just saying, and this is right again, the physicality and the size of Michigan should put them at an advantage. But if they let UConn come out like Arizona did, and you know how Arizona's big was winning those matchups and getting those buckets, right? So you let UConn come out and you're playing pretty good defense, but not lockdown defense, and you let UConn get a couple buckets and get confidence, then you know, I think then UConn could keep it. UConn's got to keep it, you know, under 10. Michigan up 7, Michigan up 5, Michigan up 9, Michigan up 6, Michigan up 10, Michigan up 7, right? Keep it in striking distance so that UConn can, when UConn goes and makes their move to take a lead, now Michigan's got to really, right? Which then they're not incapable. So what am I saying? Right? If Elliott could do is out there on some nonsense, as he was against Arizona, who's nowhere near as good a defensive team, rather than like Elliott, move the ball, get it to your guys, and get the heck out of the way. Like I told you, like I rock with this guy. You know, he's a New York guy. You know, he's a 5-star type player, even though he's undersized. Don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? He'll punch it on people. He's got the, you know, the confidence, the moxie, all the rest of that stuff. But, you know what I mean? He's got to, if it gets down to the nitty gritty with Michigan, they got to stay in their stuff and run their stuff. Their inside out stuff, you know, because because Michigan is more, when you are the more talented team, it's like you got to have role acceptance. It's easier for the team that has less because those guys, you know, they can just get in a groove and they don't have to worry about, oh, if I mess up, somebody else is coming in. Or if I, you know what I mean? They just, no, I'm going to play the whole game. You want to talk about Jerry McNamara coming in as the coach at Syracuse? He played 5 guys. Oh, yes. You're in a groove the whole game. You don't get tired in these games. If you're a hooper and you're on this big stage, minus the ticky-tack nickel dimer fouls, you can play the whole game. Darren Peterson, you know, he don't want to play, but hoopers want to play. I don't want to come out. I don't need to come out. If Dan Hurley wins his 3rd championship in 4 years, good question. Look, folks. Bobby Knight has 3 championships. 76, 81, 87. He really shouldn't have won in 87. That should have been Jim Boeheim's year. That was Jim Boeheim's year. Ronnie Cycli, Derek Coleman, Ramil Robinson, I believe, was the point guard. That was Jim Boeheim's year. And Bobby Knight stole an natty from him. Right? Billy Donovan has 2. Like, who else? Like, Roy Williams has 3 natties, all with Carolina. If Hurley gets 3 in 4 years, so he's already, how long did it take Roy Williams to get 3 natties? Like, he didn't get, man. It's tough, Chris, man. I need to be on your pod. Sherman Douglas, goodness gracious. I need to be on Chris's pod. It's a good get right there. You know, you almost want to think Pearl Washington, but that was a different group. Yeah, he's got to be what Coach K's got 5. Obviously, the Wizard of Westwood is in his own category. Al McGuire's got a couple. Like, he's already in the same conversation as the Coach K is his own category. Coach K and John Wooden are the 2 all-time greats. Okay, I favor Wooden. right? But then Coach K, that's 1 and 2, right? You got Bob Knight with 3. You got Roy Williams with 3. Okay. Right? I don't know of any. I can't think of off the top of my head. Right? Okay. We go all the way back to the Adolph Rupp days. He's obviously, well, not obviously, but he takes a hit with me because that's pre-integration. But not to be discounted. So Jay Wright has 2 or 3. Billy's got 2. Let me check on Jay. I forgot about Jay. Jay's got 2. Jay's got 2. Could have got more. NIL took him out. Right? He had it going at Nova. Certainly did. Unfortunate. Yeah. So that's where Hurley is right now. He's with the Jay Wrights and the Billy Donovans with 2. Dean Smith. Right? We were talking about Coach Thompson previously. Coach Thompson. Yeah. Coach Thompson has 1, which could have been 3. Okay? If it's and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Right? So he's in an interesting, that's not a good way of saying it. Being the underdog, right? He's been the favorite. So now as the underdog, this would be a different type of championship. He's going to be stealing one. If UConn wins this, I would have as they stole this from Michigan. Okay? In the same way that Calhoun stole, right? Put Denny in there. It's a good get. Let me just go ahead and check on So he's already in really good company when you bring up Dean Smith. And he wins another one, and right, Al McGuire Al McGuire with 1. Jim Boeheim, Tom Izzo, John Thompson, Roy Williams. Okay, a lot of outstanding coaches only got 1. So he's second tier all time if he can pull this off, and he's got years to go. To remain in that second tier. or to get into the second tier. Right now, he's third tier. Coach K and Wooden, tier 1. Bobby Knight, tier 2. And then all of the Jay Wright, Billy Donovan, Denny Crum. Okay. But in a short time, and we'll see, right? You talk about a Tark, right? A lot of those coaches, Tark, Thompson, they were the favorites. Georgetown was not the favorite against Carolina in 82, but they were, shout out to Larry Brown, Kansas in 88 with Danny Manning. By winning that back-to-back championship, Hurley stepped over some greats. So if he wins the third, now he's up in the top 3 as far as I'm concerned. 3 natties in 4 years. I mean, there's only one person to win at that clip. There's only one. That's the Wizard of Westwood. Okay. Coach K had a chance. We remember he was in the Natty in 94 against Nolan Richardson and gave them a run for their money. Grant Hill led team. Wasn't to be. Coach K had to step away from the team in 95. He had to step away, come back, get himself, that was when, and 95 was the UCLA year. Okay. 96, Pitino finally getting himself back, to the top of the mountain after many, so 96 was Pitino. 97 could have been Pitino. Lute Olson wasn't having it. Mike Bibby, Miles Simon, and so 97 was, Lute Olson's time over Kentucky. 98, Tubby Smith with Rick Pitino's players. That's one where you could say stole it from Duke. Actually, no, 98, I believe, was the Vince Carter year where Carolina was supposed to win it with Vince Carter and Jameson, and they lost to Utah, if I'm not mistaken, in 98. That should have been Carolina's year. 99 was Duke's year. UConn usurped them. 2000, the Flintstones, Izzo. 01, Duke. 02, again, Coach K, bringing back that same core. Jason Williams can't hit free throws. Lose to Indiana. Paved the way for Gary Williams to get his championship. Right? 93, Jim Boeheim, it's your turn. In 03, against Kansas, before Roy Williams takes his talents elsewhere. UConn in 4 with the stack roster that finally liked each other. Carolina in 5 with McCants, May, and Felton. 6 and 7, Billy Donovan. Right? 8, Bill Self. 9, Coach K returns. And then 10, Roy Williams with Hansborough. All right. So yes, indeed. A lot of ones. Let me just double check. Coach K has I believe it was 9 and 10 because Duke and Carolina kept trading championships. They kept trading championships. Nine was Carolina, 10 was Duke. Okay. So yeah, Coach Hurley over here stacking them up in short order. Yeah, he's going to I don't know what he's going to do. But should he get to the top of Mount Olympus, he's gonna be there with Bobby Knight and only Coach K and John Wooden ahead of him. Wish him the best. It's be a great ball game with 2 powerhouse teams. Okay, folks. Different days of the week, different themes. Here on the East Coast, we got a couple more minutes. But I'll be remiss if I did not say to everybody out there, Happy Easter. Happy Easter. On a sanctified Sunday. Hope you had a good day. Realize everyone does not celebrate Easter. And so recognize that. Respect to your background. I happen to celebrate Easter personally. And so just from me to everybody out there in television land, I just hope you had a good day. And just to share that love, joy, and peace that, in my faith tradition comes from Christ. And just, a thankfulness, a gratitude, and, right? 2 commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. So that's what Easter is about to me. Yes. Yes, indeed. We talked about that in the first part of the show. You go back and check that out. But, Team Staley all the way. Team Staley all the way. To the victor goes the spoils. That's what it is, right? You know what I mean? U.C.L.A. came out there and they went to work. They went to work. That was a dominant performance. Coach Staley handed herself a class in defeat, just as in victory. But today was UCLA's day, and you got a chance to see Betts That's a WNBA player. Vasquez, Gabriella, Jaime's sister. She's a WNBA player. They got a couple pros on that roster. A couple pros, most definitely. So yeah. Coach Staley, you can go back and check out the, I made it clear how I feel about Coach Staley and what she means to the game of basketball. She's a cultural force for good. And we're fortunate to have her. And she's got no end in sight. Okay, so Sanctified Sunday, happy Easter again. Love, joy, peace, reconciliation. That's what it's about. For me, that's what I want to share and to spread. And respectfully, if you don't celebrate Easter, I hope you had a good day. And hanging in there and are doing all right. You know what I mean? And hey, there is a God out there that loves you. All right. Well, people said amen. Now, yes, indeed. Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah, Dawn could coach. Dawn could she's a coach. Shout out to Nightcap, Uncle Shannon, Ocho, ISO Joe. Yeah, Joe talked about Dawn Staley. He was playing for the Big Three. Rebecca Lobo was the coach, and Dawn Staley came in and said a few things to the team. All right, folks. And we're here. We're in the building, SandCity Passion Project. You know what this is. Wanted to, as again, we got a couple. It is Easter. The day is kind of moving towards conclusion on the East Coast. A couple more hours as you head west. And you've been wished a happy Easter and kind of talked about how I see Easter and what it means to me. I think that's an appropriate segue. It is a important holiday, religious holiday, and Jaden Ivey has recently been in the news for being waived by the Bulls. He's no longer on the roster, no longer in the NBA as of right now. This is a lottery pick. But then how he has chosen to share his faith with others has also been a part of that conversation. And so, yes, there's a couple different things to unpack. Again, I do see a symmetry, a through line. And so let's dive into it. Okay. So to begin with, Jaden Ivey, this is something that Colin Kneppel had said. He has free speech just like anybody else has free speech. He has a right to voice his opinion just like anybody else has a right to voice their opinion. And that's kind of where this started, is where he viewed a particular belief system and way of life. He was in disagreement with that. And that's his right. He can say, this is not the way that I do things. This is the way that this different community does things. And, I choose to be different. And he's right there. Okay. So to start now, Jaden Ivey is a good player. He's not a great player. Okay. Had he made the statements that he made, and then, really kind of stood firm on those statements, but been a player that was more impactful, would he have been waived? I don't think so. Okay. I think, the fact that he is at a crossroads in his career meant that he did not get the benefit of the doubt others may have gotten. Let's say that. Okay. But now I want to address, the tone, the tenor, and the fashion in which Jaden Ivey is expressing himself, right? And while saying, as I did to begin, he has free speech, everybody has free speech. You have the right to speak your mind. Okay, that speech does not give you the right to threaten others. It doesn't give you the right to make others feel as if their safety is an issue. Okay, there are limits to what your free speech is protected, or there are limits to the protections afforded to your speech. All right. But Jaden Ivey's stances to call out different individuals or groups, right? That's what I want to take a look at. Okay. Again, as somebody that he's a Christian, comes from a Christian background. I come from a Christian background and allow that faith to have a notable impact on my life. All right. Right. Jaden Ivey is not perfect. I'm not perfect. Okay. People who are Christians are not perfect. Okay. Flawed individuals. All right. You believe that there was one perfect person who died for your sins and the sins of the world, Christ Jesus, but we are flawed individuals. All right. Now I want to frame it that way. And now kind of get to the brunt of this. First of all, before I go any further, this is still SandCity Sports, and people are welcome to tune in and chime in. We've gone into a religious topic because a professional athlete from a particular religious background has expressed his faith, which put him in a compromised position, which has led to or impacted his status as a professional athlete. And then there's been some things off the court that he's been involved in that are kind of tied to this. So stop right here and say we are discussing both social and religious things, but this remains an open forum for people to chime in, and you should not feel uncomfortable or as though you don't have the right to an opinion or you don't have the right to your views, or if that's going to be somehow offensive. No, this is a conversation. Okay. This is a forum, right? Sometimes called apologetics, which is when people defend their faith traditions. It's called apologetics, if you want to use that term. All right. So, Jaden Ivey. My thoughts. You have the right to free speech. You have the right to express yourself. And that expression can be, right? It can be just more pointed and direct, right? And, you can call somebody out, right? You can do that in a number of different capacities. And, he's coming from a religious standpoint. All right. Or you can show them what you mean in how you conduct yourself. And that's what this really, for me, kind of comes down to, is that when you call somebody out, and if you take that approach, okay, socially, politically, or from the religious standpoint, yes, it is an option. However, you have to be sure, if that's the way that you're going to go about things, that you are above, notably, firmly above what we would call reproach, right? Or, that you have mastered whatever it is that this individual happens to be struggling with or dealing with, that you in your own life, have been able to come to a place where that is not an issue for you, right? And that in speaking, what we would say, you speak the truth in love. Speak the truth in love. That's how you get the results that you, right, may be hoping for. Right? It's Easter, folks. Okay? For God so loved the world. Okay? That he gave his only begotten son so that none should perish but have eternal life. Right, I'm going to come to the conclusion of this segment rather swiftly. Okay? Because again, sports, politics, religion, I get all of that. But this, I think, is instructive and, is a place for conversation. All right? That was my kind of initial takeaway, and that's where I stand on this. Right? A man offended is harder to win than a fortified city. What does that mean? I'm giving you some quotes. A man offended is harder to win than a fortified city. Okay? If you, in your reaching out to somebody from a faith perspective, do it in a way that offends that person for whatever reason, okay, you have created a barrier around them that you are going to now have to navigate should you want to share your faith, share the virtues of your faith. Love, joy, peace, hope, on and on and on. If you offend them, it's the first thing I'll say. Just keep in mind, man offended is harder to win than a fortified city. Secondly, okay, why do you see the speck in your brother's eye and not the stake in your own eye? Why do you see the speck in somebody else's eye? The issue that they have, the speck, and not a stake, by the way, we're not talking about Count Dracula, It's like if you have a fence, like right? The stake in your own eye. Okay? Yes, that person might have an issue with whatever. But before you take that speck or help them take the speck out of the issue, you need to remove what you have that you're dealing with. Okay? These are just some other ways. A man offended, you see that speck? Okay. But make sure that you remove the stake from yourself so that you can go ahead and address that. And I'll just kind of conclude. So we move on. Jaden Ivey is a young man, right? And right, he's let's be clear, and he's going through some things. He said some things, and then he's also acknowledged that he's going through some things. All right, okay, right. And it's a process. It's a process. Right? We think about one of the greatest athletes of all time, Muhammad Ali, formerly Cassius Clay. Okay, that was a process of going from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. That was not always smooth or seamless. It's a process. Okay, so I'm mindful that Jaden Ivey he's navigating this process. Okay, right. Now, conclude. Something that one of my teachers told me that always stuck with me, years ago, is he said, listen, I don't like to tell people things that I believe are beneficial for them. I don't like to tell people things. And this was a very learned man that I had the privilege of taking classes with, a scholar. So I don't like to tell people things. So I like to show people things. I like to tell people things. I like to show people things. Okay? And that's how he conducted himself. And that's how, he had a tremendous impact on my and many other students' lives. Like he was a legitimate scholar. Right? You go to college, you get a chance to study with PhDs and people that are just extremely knowledgeable in their field of inquiry, extremely knowledgeable. So you listen to these lectures and it'll blow your hair back. I don't have much hair on my head, but these guys are the real deal. The real deal. Okay? It's a great part of the college experience, right? But along with those impactful lectures, they show you who they are. Being around them on a day-to-day basis, how they conduct themselves, how they move in this world. They show you the virtues that they are espousing and trying to help you to understand. And that is what makes a difference for people. Ultimately. Okay? You can tell somebody something. Yes, they understand it theoretically, philosophically. They understand the ideas that come. You show somebody something. Okay? It's going to have a markedly greater impact. Right? So Jaden Ivey, again, young guy. He's figuring some things out. I can empathize. I was a young person trying to figure some things out too. All right. Right. But the effectiveness of what you're trying to get done does hinge on some of this age-old wisdom. Okay. And so Jaden Ivey or anyone else that wants to have a positive impact in the world, lean into that age-old wisdom. Grasp it, understand it, apply it to yourself, and then go ahead and share it with others. Okay, I wish them all the best. All right, folks, SandCity Sports, we coming to that. We still here. We still locked in, but we're coming down the home stretch. We're going to get into our slice of life here on SandCity. It's been a good episode. It's been a good day. We got We got another good day coming up. The Natty. All right, and let's stay right. Talking about college, talking about the one shining moment. Yeah, it's a game, but then it's more than a game. It's more than a game. It impacts you. It impacts you. So let's go ahead and take a look at that.
They talk. Stinks. You want them? Please don't ever judge me for wins and losses. That's not who I am as a coach. Relationships, you want it from them, and it's yeah. I'll leave it at that. I can't hardly talk. Stinks.
Coach Underwood choked up.
Please don't ever judge me for wins and losses. That's not who I am as a coach. Relationships, you want it from them, and it's yeah. I'll leave it at that. I can't hardly talk.
Right? That full investment. That full investment. Let's stay there.
Yeah, we're a tough program. You know, we're a tough program. We're a group of fighters.
Coach Early.
It's not appealing to everyone. I'm sure there's some people in here, you know, that it's off-putting for, you know, but we are a group of fighters. We're incredibly tough. We've got incredible will. And we go into these games, we're ready for battle. Again, for us, it's not, you know, a game that we're just kind of running around in uniforms, throwing the ball around, hoping it goes in. That's not what we're doing out there. You know, we're fighting. It's a life and death struggle for us to get to Monday night, for the opportunity to win a championship, and then just to be able to prolong this season with each other, and you know, to make the people of Connecticut proud, to make the university proud, and all the former great players. And I mentioned Coach Calhoun and Kevin Ollie, and just Rip Hamilton's here, Khalid El-Amin, Kevin Freeman. I know got a bunch of the former players here. So it just means everything for us to show up as warriors for our battles and wars that we do in sports. Yeah, we're a tough program. You know, we're a tough program. We're a group of fighters. You know.
Yeah, it's Coach Hurley. It's a St. Anthony's tradition. Spartan perspective. Yeah. Doing it for the right reasons, from the heart. Again, check out the Miracle of St. Anthony's. Check out the street stops here. Okay? You want to see the background. You know, the Miracle of St. Anthony's, the street stops here. Right? Pushing people to the limits, you know, as Coach Underwood talked about, you know, because you want the best for them. To get them to that, you know, listen, everybody's special, nobody's special. All right? So, you know, it's that rarefied air that these folks are walking in.
Players, the game is better because it's older. At 25, 26. I laughed and said the guy got 2 kids and his wife, and he's on his second wife. And
it's being a pro. That's what being a pro basketball player is.
Yes.
But John, you say go pro. Some would argue this is professional basketball. It is professional sports now.
It's amateur basketball.
No, it's not.
But,
No, it's not.
But well, then let's just call it pro and let it be a pro basketball.
Well, but when, first of all, it was pro basketball before NIL, and I'll tell you why. Amateur sports don't make billions of dollars and pay their coaches and administrators millions. There is nothing about this that has ever been amateur once the money jumped up. And it started in 1984 with the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that allowed the conferences to sell their media rights. There is no difference between the media rights contracts with the NCAA from a media company like ours and the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. Zero difference. And right now, when we're talking about this, we're kind of taking an old school mentality of, hey, it used to be a certain way, and that's fine. But if we want players to stay, then sign them to long-term contracts and put buyouts in them. But the NCAA doesn't want to do that because they don't want them to be employees. They want to beg Congress for an antitrust exemption. And they're not going to get it. What other multi-billion-dollar industry is getting an antitrust exemption from Congress? There isn't one. What the NCAA should do is make rules that don't violate federal law. The rest of American business has to do it. They can do it too.
Well, that's the one major difference then, right? Like that's the difference between being an NBA or NHL. There are rules and regulations. Also, there's a CBA. The players have a voice. The coaches have a voice. We don't have any of those guidelines.
Because they don't want it.
Exactly.
The NCAA does not want it. And like when it drives me crazy when people say, well, we used to talk about education. What's stopping you from talking about education? If a player's not interested in education, then don't take the player. You know, and if you don't like transfers, don't take transfers. But you know what everybody wants to do? They want to win. Like none of these schools is going, we have the highest GPA. They're going, we've been to 6 Final Fours. They want to win, and they're going to pay what's necessary to win.
But you got to find a balance, because I don't care what collective bargaining, it's a professional sport. All those things sound great. But in the end, these are 17 to 18-year-old kids.
They're not kids.
Well, yeah,
it's called men's college basketball. They're adults.
That's just rhetoric.
No, they're adults. They're adults.
Is a developing young person.
That's different. You say developing young man. Developing young man is still an adult. They get charged with a crime. They're charged as an adult.
Can I just say this? I've been one that has promoted young people making money 15 years ago. They're NIL. They should be able to do this. We just got to figure out, maybe it's collective bargaining. Maybe it's collective bargain with the trade union, the players, and we come up with something. This is not sustainable. If you don't want it to sustain, then say, let's just keep going as is. I'm in this. I mean, I don't mind kids transferring. I don't. But I'm saying, do we really want them to be able to go every year? And then you say, well, coach can. Well, if I left, my players can leave. If I leave, there is a buyout in there. So I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. The transfer and the length of eligibility. A 17-year-old playing against a 28-year-old is not healthy and safe. It's just not.
There needs to be some kind of years of
football do they
qualification.
make them stay 3 years because they say it's not safe?
No, that's not why. The NFL has a collective bargaining.
You and I could go back and forth on this and have some fun with it.
But they determine. So that's a great point. Like the NFL used to be 4 years. You know, college football is 50 years older than the NFL. And the NFL used to have, or excuse me, the NCAA used to have a rule way back in the day that when the NFL was getting going, that if you worked in professional sports, you could no longer work in college sports. So the NCAA, the NFL came to the NCAA on bended knee and said, please don't do this to us. You'll kill us as we're getting going. We won't draft your players until they graduate. And then they started drafting them after 3 years. You know why? Not because they're mature enough now. It's because the USFL started drafting juniors, and they had to keep up. That's all it is. That's a collective bargaining issue for eligibility for the draft and nothing more. The NBA has an eligibility issue that says 1 year after your high school graduation and you're in. So that's a pro thing, not a college thing. And the colleges just will. The NCAA will not adjust to this. They never have. And they've used the word unsustainable for 50 years now, and the money keeps going up. The ratings are higher than they've ever been right now.
Cal, can I ask you from an institutional perspective, because we're not going to fix that issue right now on national TV. How has your system operationalized to kind of keep up with the times? How is it different than what it was 5 years ago? Are you going to have a CEO? We have a president overall. Do you have a GM now? Like how's everything?
It's different in basketball than football. And here's what I would say. If it comes a point for me personally where it's transactional, I'm paying, you're going to say I'm leaving, you got to pay me more, and I won't do this anymore. As long as it's transformational, I look at Darius Acuff, and he's going to keep me coaching for a few more years. Malik Thomas, they'll never be able to play together. Both of them are going to have pro careers. Billy Goat Richmond, Trevin Brazil, he's never been better. That makes me go. But if it becomes transactional, why am I doing this? Then I might well be a pro coach. Just be a pro coach. They fired me, though. Did you know they fired me? They fired me because I played rookies.
It's a remarkable thing, and I think both of you make great points in that. I agree with Jay. They're not kids, but they're still maturing. There's something to be said for helping them to develop, help them make wise decisions, because when we are immature, even if we're adults, sometimes we grab at the first shiny thing we see, and it's not for the betterment in the long
Can I
term.
just say,
But you have to let the business function as a business.
yeah, I just think we're talking about the one percenters. We're not talking about the enterprise. And we have young people that are making this money, and that's great. And they're going to go to Europe and get fired. They're going to come back, and you talk about mental health issues. We better be prepared to help these people and have someone build a bridge for them to cross to help them navigate the rest of their life, not just these 3 or 4 years where they're marketing.
So they
Let me say this.
unpaid.
I have nothing to say with that.
I don't think he's saying that.
Jay, a kid's making $500,000 a year. He stays and he transfers and he makes $600 a year, and then he's done. No college degree. He goes to get a job, and the guy offers him $60,000. The guy feels good about it. 60. This is fugazi money right now, and you're right. There's so much of it. It's crazy. What do we do with that kid? Now all of a sudden he says $60,000. Do I get a car? Do I have to come to work? Do you get me? You're feeding me, right? The apartment. We're going to deal with mental health issues. And that's what I'm saying. Let's collect the bargain. Let's have people in the room. We're finally talking about it to say it's an issue right now. And we got to do something. I'm for the kids. I don't care what they make. I don't really care. Let people decide that. But how we run our business, we got to do this different for them. I hate to say it, in the game too, which we've all benefited by. We're all waiting on older players. The game is better because it's older.
The longer conversation than I thought. That was outstanding. So I got to keep that. They hit a number of nails on the head right there. And just, I don't mind that it took 5 or so minutes. All right, we got one more clip before we get out of here. That was going to have to store that.
Now more than ever, we used to choose players and we used to convince them to come play for us, whether it's because we were showering them with attention or we showed them more love or we'd simply been recruiting them longer. Now the players, and each coach may have a different opinion, but the players are choosing us. And when we make contact with the player, the first thing they do is slide into the DMs and the messages of all of our players that we coach currently and the players that we've coached in the past. And they do more homework and intel on us than we do on them. And so I know that's spinning in a number of different directions, but just recruiting's changed so much. And I'm going to echo Coach Barnes from Tennessee last week. It's not that bad. We used to recruit guys for 3 years and spend 80, 100, 200 man hours away from our families begging these 15 to 18-year-olds to come play at our university, and then they decide to go in another direction. And you just think of all the time and resources you've wasted. And so recruiting has definitely been streamlined, and it's much more efficient than it's ever been. I think now more than ever, we used to choose players and we used to convince them to come play for us, whether it's because we were showering them with attention or we showed them more love or we'd simply been recruiting them longer. Now the players, and each coach may have a different opinion, but the players are choosing us.
So that's another gem right there in terms of the landscape, and the NIL and the things. You know, the players say, "Hey, this is program, and this is what they're offering, and that's where I want to go ahead and play ball." All right, so that's some real. That was tremendous conversation with heavyweights, best in the business, Jay Will, Jay Billis, Coach K. A gentleman name escapes me, but outstanding. You know, on the different sides of the current space, winners and the losers. Again, we do need to. There's all this money flying around. We know that 70% of the NBA players, upwards of that, 80 some odd percent of the NFL players are broke 5 years after retirement. We know this. Okay, it's a fact. So now you've given money to 17, 18, 19-year-olds, okay, paying ridiculous commissions to their quote-unquote NIL agents, right? There's mismanagement there. And I think that's what Cal is getting at, and it's 1,000% true, all right? And it's the same thing that we talk about with, you know, it's just youth sports in general, the hoop dreams. These are kids. And they went back and forth about, no, you're a kid. They're not a kid. They're a young adult. You can be charged. Yes, you can be charged as an adult at 17, 18. But anybody that's in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you know that at 17, 18, you got all of the hormones. Your system is going crazy and none of the intel, right? Last part of the, mind to develop, the frontal lobe. Okay. Objective, complex, intricate thinking. That's the last part to develop. Okay, you can scale a wall and climb a mountain and stuff like that. Okay, but your mind, your understanding, your perspective is still developing very much in those years. Then never mind all the different influences with, everybody flickering images. I'm talking into a screen right now. All right, 24/7. So that's where I do feel strongly. Jay has been on this for a while, and he has a legal background, and he's very skilled. They're all skilled communicators, orators, so on and forth. Okay, so Jay breaks it down in terms of this. If the NCAA had not had a, matriarchal fixation, to Jay's point, these things could have been settled and organized a long time ago. Okay, but by denying that there was a horse in the barn, okay, that being the revenue, the players' labor power, for so long, just denying that it existed, that the labor actually had a part in a multi-billion-dollar business. Now it's out of the barn and it's just galloping, running wild. Ridiculous. Right? College sports, you can play for 6 years. No, 4. Not 6, 4. Okay, transfer every single year. No. One transfer, then you got to sit your behind down. Stop it. Stop it. I think that in and of itself, you sit when you transfer, period. You sit. And then a little bit of oversight in terms of all this money that's going flying around. It's come on. You ban the Fab Five banner, and this player got a coffee and a sweet roll. I'm on the odd couple. Rob Parker, coffee and a sweet roll. Who is taking a look at all this NIL and what's going on behind the scenes? That's why we made the changes at the youth level. You have all these sanctions on the shoe companies. You've let the prep schools do some live period stuffs because of the things that were going on in the shadows. All this stuff is going on in the shadows. All right. So that free market, a little bit too free. A little bit too free. They are young adults. And again, we have the NIL in high school now. So now you're talking about then they're not adults. You're going to allow NIL in high school, which is already a thing. They're literally teens, and something, the phenoms are not even teenagers. Stop it. Stop it. We need regulations. Okay, and we'll finish, we don't play or hate on SandCity. We congratulate. Money only makes you more of what you already are. Shannon Sharp. Okay, it only makes you more of what you already are. You just throw a ton of money at people that are growing, developing, okay, have issues because that's life. It's not helping them. It's exacerbating these fundamental conditions. Okay, so we can do better. We can do better, folks. You know that I appreciate you. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's go. Hey, thank you so much, people. SandCity.